lovely listeners. Well, Mira here, ready to sprinkle some sunshine and maybe a few glitter bombs into your day. You know, between our last chatting today, I had a little incident that proved my theory life is a musical, and I'm always off key. I was trying to record it in IKTOK while simultaneously making my super secret, extra foamy unicorn sparkle coffee. Ooh. Long story short, my foot got tangled in the charging cable for my phone. Which then sent the coffee to stress the coffee. The phone.
Mira, only you could turn a kitchen disaster into an avant-garde art installation. Burnt marshmallows and glitter. That's a culinary crime scene. That's a culinary crime scene. I swear, you're either a secret agent whose mission is chaos, or you just embrace the everything's a prop philosophy. My bet's on the latter. Oh. You're making me feel rather boring. My biggest mishap this week was discovering my coffee maker had unionized and was demanding extra beans for overtime. It almost led to a caffeine strike in my paffine strike in my paffine strike in mine strike in my no.
Speaking of collecting things, Leo, today we're not just collecting hilarious mishaps, we're collecting crucial information. For anyone dreaming of new horizons, we're diving deep into fascinating countries that couldn't be more different, yet both hold a unique charm. Today we're talking about Djibouti and Slovakia. Oh, wait, I want to add something there. You're wondering, Djibouti and Slovakia, what a combo. And you'd be right, but that's exactly why we're here, to unravel every single difference and similarity.
Indeed. And to our loyal listeners who've clicked that like button and maybe even subscribed on YouTube, we appreciate you. We appreciate you. Which country should I pick? Where should I move? Which country should I pick? Which country should I pick? Where should I move? What's the better travel spot for my family? Today, we're cutting through the noise. We're going to lay out everything from the cost of a cup of coffee to the cost of a cup of coffee to the causes in the vibrant local cultures. If you're pondering a move, a vacation, or even tying the vibrant local cultures.
Absolutely. This isn't just a casual chat, it's your comprehensive decision-making toolkit. Wow. We're talking climate, cuisine, safety, education, the whole 9 yards. So, if you're wrestling with questions like, is Djibouti's Red Sea coast calling me? Or am I more suited for Slovakia's Tatra Mountains? Or will I find my perfect career path in Bratislava or Djibouti City? You're in the right place. We'll explore everything from the desert's embrace to the European heartland's charm. And remember, if you have specific questions you want us to cover in future episodes.
And all of this insightful exploration, from the Horn of Africa to Central Europe, is brought to you with the kind of meticulous detail you'd expect from the global travel insights found on Jet Off AI. So, consider this podcast your definitive roadmap. You'll walk away knowing exactly which of these two incredible countries resonates more with your personal aspirations. This isn't just about comparing countries, it's about helping you compare your dreams to reality.
Alright, our current topic. Let's dive into something that's always on everyone's mind when they explore new places: general safety and crime rates. It's like the first thing I check before booking a trip, even if I usually just hope for the best. Today, we're looking at Djibouti and Slovakia. Two very different places, right? Djibouti, in the Horn of Africa, gives me this vibe of a bustling, strategically important port city. And Slovakia, nestled in Central Europe, with all those historical towns.
Djibouti, a port city, huh? That means a lot of coming and going, a real melting pot of humanity. And where there's a melting pot, my friend, there's always a bit of unplanned exchange of goods, if you catch my drift. I imagine the street vendors there have eyes in the back of their heads. For tourists in Djibouti, petty crime like pickpocketing is common, especially in crowded markets or near the port. It's not like danger lurks around every corner, but you definitely wouldn't want of your back pocket.
Leo, you always see the mischievous side first. But you're right. In any busy place, you have to be mindful. For Djibouti, despite that, I've heard the locals are incredibly welcoming, especially if you show respect for their culture. It's often the economic disparities that can lead to petty theft, not necessarily a malevolent intent. It's a country with a strong sense of community, and that often translates to people looking out for each other.
Looking out for each other, or looking out for your unattended bag? Kidding mostly. But seriously, when you're talking about a country like Djibouti, with its unique geopolitical position, there's a layer of security that comes with it being a hub for various international military bases. That often means a noticeable, sometimes reassuring, military and police presence. On the flip side, it also means a place can be a target, though that's generally not something a tourist would encounter day to day.
Well, speaking of different kinds of calm, let's hop over to Slovakia. Wow. When I picture Slovakia, I think charming castles, picturesque mountains, and quaint towns. It just feels serene.
Oh, Slovakia. Yes, the land where pickpockets wear polite smiles. No, seriously, it's generally quite safe. But, like any European tourist hotspot, think Bratislav's old town or the Hajdachers who always find a few entrepreneurs who specialize in relieving you of your valuables. It's the classic. Oh, look at that beautiful fountain moment. And suddenly your phone is gone. Oops, I've seen it happen. It's less about violent crime and more about opportunism.
It's a good point that makes you kick yourself, not fear for your life. But for overall safety, Slovakia adheres to pretty high European standards. Their police force is visible and responsive, and public transport is usually very safe, even at night. For serious crime, it's exceptionally low. It's the kind of place where you feel comfortable letting your guard down a little, which is a lovely feeling when you're on holiday. And if you've enjoyed our chat so far, don't forget to like this video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel.
Letting your guard down a little is always a relative term. My observation tells me that the moment you completely relax, that's when you drop your coffee or worse. So in both Djibouti and Slovakia, basic street smarts go a long way. Front pockets for your wallet. Don't flash expensive gadgets, and be aware of your surroundings. It's not rocket science, it's just don't make yourself an easy target 101. Hehe. And for all the factual enthusiasts out there, remember.
Precisely. It's all about common sense. Whether you're navigating the lively markets of Djibouti or strolling through a historic square in Slovakia, a bit of awareness is your best friend. Neither country presents extreme, widespread danger, but a smart traveler is always a happy traveler. We'd love to hear from you what are your personal experiences with safety in these countries, or anywhere else. Drop your stories in the comments below. You know, when I first hear political stability and social harmony, my brain immediately goes, oh, a new reality TV show starring heads of state. But seriously, it's such a crucial topic, especially if you're thinking about picking up and moving your entire life somewhere. It's like checking the warranty on your new country.
Reality TV show is one way to put it. I usually think more along the lines of extended documentary series that occasionally features a very long-winded monologue from the main character. And speaking of long-running shows, let's talk about Djibouti. It's a country where the political landscape has been, shall we say, remarkably consistent. We're talking about a president who's been in power for quite a while now. Some might call that stability. Others might call it not much change on the remote control.
Well, that's one way to frame it. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but for national leadership. With its super strategic spot, you know, right there on the Red Sea. Djibouti has a lot of international friends setting up military bases. That definitely brings a certain kind of stability, right? It's like having really buff bodyguards at your front door. You might not always agree with what they're doing, but at least nobody else is messing with your lawn.
Indeed. Nothing quite says social harmony like having multiple global superpowers running their own mini-cities within your borders. It's a fascinating dynamic. From one perspective, it's a hub of international cooperation from another. It's a game of political chess with a very small board. But to their credit, the various ethnic groups, primarily the Issa and Afar, generally manage to coexist. It's a complex tapestry, with historical threads that have occasionally frayed. But they haven't unraveled entirely.
I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me. Trying to untangle that knot might take a lot of effort and perhaps a very strong cup of coffee. And now, for a completely different flavor of political reality, let's hop over to Slovakia. It's like going from a long-running drama to a constantly changing ensemble comedy. Well,
Slovakia, where political stability often means how many coalition partners can we keep happy this week? As a proud member of the EU, they've got that democratic framework firmly in place, but that also means a lively, sometimes boisterous political scene. Elections can swing wildly, leading to new governments faster than I can brew my morning coffee. It's stability, but with a healthy dose of dramatic plot twists. I'm actually curious about what our viewers on YouTube think about how their own countries.
well, since we mentioned dramatic plot twists, Slovakia's social harmony has its own intriguing elements. You have the main Slovak population, but also a significant Hungarian minority, and the Roma community, which unfortunately faces a lot of challenges. It's not always a perfectly choreographed dance, you know. Sometimes there are missteps, but the music keeps playing. It's a real mosaic of cultures trying to build a shared future, and I bet it makes for some fascinating conversations over a plate of brindisi. Oh.
Brindisi OV, Halas KY, the national dish. That's one way to unite people through delicious, starchy goodness. But you're right, the integration of the Roma population remains a persistent socio-canción and social harmony challenge. It's a stark reminder that even within the EU, deep-seated issues can remain. So, while Slovakia presents itself as a modern, European nation, there are still layers to peel back. It's like finding a surprise onion in your otherwise sweet apple pie.
An onion in your apple pie. Only you. It sounds like both countries, despite their very different political structures and histories, are constantly navigating the waters of harmony and stability in their own unique ways. One with a long-standing captain, the other with a rotating crew. Oh, it's never as simple as stable or unstable, is it? It's always about the nuances, the everyday lives, and those small moments of connection.
Exactly. And for anyone looking to understand these nuances more deeply, perhaps before planning a trip or a move, you really need solid information. This isn't just about headlines, it's about context. For more insights like this, don't forget to check out Jet Off AI. They've got the lowdown on more than just the political front.
Because whether it's a consistent leadership style or a constantly shifting political stage, the real question for expats often boils down to: can I find my favorite coffee shop without accidentally getting caught in a protest or a parliamentary debate? It's all about priorities, right, listeners? If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. Oh, speaking of things that make your wallet happy or, well, maybe cry, let's look at economic conditions and the cost of living in Djibouti and Slovakia. I'm imagining a spectrum here, from beachfront property costs a kidney, to you can actually afford a coffee without selling a limb.
Well, Mira, my keen observational skills tell me that in Djibouti, your kidney might be worth more than a cup of coffee. Whoa! It's a strategic hub, sure, but that means everything's imported and everything's expensive. It's like living in a high-security luxury box, but the luxury part applies more to the prices than the amenities. Ouch! For expats, it's pretty much all high-end living or a very different kind of adventure.
So, it's less tropical paradise on a budget and more bring your own everything and pay extra for the air. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me, right? It sounds like you need to have a very specific job there, probably involving a uniform, to make ends meet comfortably. Meanwhile, over in Slovakia, it's a bit of a different tune. They're rocking the Ural, and while not exactly cheap, it's definitely more wallet friendly than, say, Paris.
Oh, absolutely. Slovakia's got its automotive industry humming along. They call it the Detroit of Europe, which, if you ask me, is either a compliment or a warning, depending on your perspective. For cost of living, Bratislava might feel a bit like a tiny, less chaotic Vienna, but once you step outside the capital, things get much more reasonable. It's the kind of place where your coffee money actually buys coffee, and maybe a pastry, not just the aroma.
Wait. I want to add something there. My friends who've lived in Bratislava said they can actually afford to go out for dinner more than once a week. Wow, that's practically a superpower compared to some global cities. Whereas in Djibouti, I hear even a simple meal out can feel like you're splurging on a 5-star experience. It's like your grocery bill gets a VIP pass to the extreme pricing club. Ouch. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yes. And speaking of dining in Djibouti, most of your local cuisine is essentially whatever was shipped in yesterday, at an astronomical markup. Your personal chef might be the only way to save money, assuming you can even find one. Slovakia, on the other hand, has a solid local food scene. You can actually buy fresh produce without needing a second mortgage. It's almost scandalous how much more normal it is.
Oh. So one country makes you feel like an accidental millionaire when you buy groceries, and the other lets you live like a normal person. My inner child who thinks money grows on trees might prefer Slovakia. But for those niche, highly specialized roles in Djibouti, the salaries must be quite attractive to balance out the high costs, right? It's not all pay and pray out there for everyone.
Well, Leo's law of economics states, the more remote and uncomfortable the job, the higher the hazard pay when you're doing it wrong. Whoa! In Djibouti, you're looking at very specific job markets: military, aid organizations, or international business. It's not exactly a bustling job fair for the average barista can also pilot a cargo ship. Slovakia, though, offers a much broader range, especially in tech and shared service centers beyond just cranking out cars.
Oh, that's an important distinction for our audience. So if you're looking for global opportunities, Jet AI probably has a highly specialized filter for Djibouti and a more general professional filter for Slovakia. It really underlines how different these two economic landscapes are. One's a high-stakes, niche market, the other is more of a stable, growing EU economy.
Exactly. In Djibouti, you're not just moving for a very particular job. Otherwise, your economic reality will quickly feel like a stand-up routine gone wrong. Oops. Slovakia, however, allows for a more traditional career path, with a cost of living that won't make you wonder if your bank account is secretly a black hole. So for most people, the choice is between a very specific, high-stakes opportunity or a more accessible European lifestyle. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you found our economic and lifestyle.
You know, when we were just talking about those travel stories, I got thinking about where we actually sleep in all these crazy places. Today, let's look at a topic that's super important for anyone dreaming of moving, or even just visiting. accommodation, options, and quality. And for this one, we're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia. Wow, talk about two different postcards, right?
Different postcards is one way to put it, Mira. I'd say it's more like a sun-big desert tent versus a charming little gingerbread house in the mountains. Seriously though, Djibouti's accommodation scene, especially in Djibouti City, it's quite specific. You're mostly looking at hotels catering to business travelers, military personnel, or aid workers. The quality can range, but let's just say a 5-star there might feel a tad different from a 5-star in, say, Paris.
Oh, I can just picture it. Leo. A 5-star where the 5th star is just a really enthusiastic ceiling fan. Really, for those thinking of long-term stays, what's the housing market like beyond the hotels? I'm certain that all living in Djibouti would agree with me. Finding a standard rental, a good apartment, that's usually the golden ticket, right?
Well, golden ticket might be a bit optimistic, ouch. But yes, apartments are the main game in town for long-termers. However, don't expect a sprawling, airy space with all the mod cons unless you're prepared to pay a premium. And by premium, I mean, is this apartment made of solid gold bricks? Kind of premium. Well, utilities can be, shall we say, a character-building experience too. If you're looking for that kind of adventure, then Djibouti definitely delivers.
Functional survival. You always find the perfect, slightly dramatic way to put things. But seriously, it's good to set expectations, especially when you're thinking about a move. Speaking of expectations, what about the quality of the buildings themselves in Djibouti? Are we talking about modern structures or more traditional, older builds that might need a bit of TLC?
It's a mix. You'll find some newer developments, particularly in the expat-focused areas, but often the older buildings show the wear and tear of that incredibly harsh climate. Think air conditioning working overtime, sometimes fruitlessly. Ouch, the term housing standards can be very relative there. If you're coming from a place with strict building codes and consistent maintenance, you might experience a bit of a culture shock.
Oh, culture shock with your living space. That's a story for the grandkids right there. Oh, now, let's swivel to Slovakia. I bet the housing market, there is a completely different ball game. Probably with more actual balls. From what I understand, they've got some lovely cities like Bratislava, and then these incredibly picturesque, almost fairy tale-like towns.
Absolutely, Mira. From Djibouti's rugged utility to Slovakia's European comfort with a dash of historic charm, it's quite the pivot. Slovakia offers a much wider array of accommodation options. In Bratislava, you'll find everything from modern high-rise apartments to renovated flats in historic city centers. The quality is generally good, often meeting or exceeding EU standards.
Ooh, significantly more affordable is music to my ears, Leo. I can already picture myself in a cozy Bratislava apartment, sipping tea and plotting my next spontaneous dance party. What about housing standards outside of the capital? Are there plenty of options in smaller towns or even out in the beautiful countryside?
Definitely. If you're not tied to the big city, Slovakia truly opens up. You can find quaint houses, charming cottages, or even chalets in the mountains. The standards are generally solid. You might even stumble upon a beautifully preserved historic building that's been modernized internally. Wow, Of course, the further you get from major urban centers, the more traditional and potentially simpler the options become, but rarely do they dip into functional survival territory.
That sounds delightful. So, if you're like me and dreaming of a place that feels like it stepped out of a storybook, Slovakia could be it. But Leo, are there any unique quirks about renting or buying in Slovakia that our listeners should know about? Or is it all pretty straightforward, like ordering a delicious local pastry?
Local pastry is a good analogy, Mira, because sometimes there are layers. While generally straightforward, especially compared to some places, it's still Europe. Expect a bit of bureaucracy, standard contracts, some plaques, and the usual deposits. For foreigners, dealing with local real estate agents or property managers is key, and it might help to have some basic Slovak phrases in your arsenal. Aha! We've also seen a rise in short-term rentals impacting long-term availability in popular areas.
Excellent point, Leo. And it's always good to be prepared, whether it's for property papers or for finding the best local pastry. So, to sum it up for accommodation options and quantity, it sounds like Djibouti is more about strategic, functional stays, often with a higher price tag for what you get, given its unique context.
And Slovakia offers much more variety, better quality standards for the price point, and a general alignment with European living, making it quite appealing for those seeking comfort without breaking the bank. Oh! It's like choosing between a high-stakes desert poker game and a relaxing spa retreat. Both have their appeal depending on what you're after.
Poker game versus spa retreat. Perfect. That really highlights the contrast. So, for our listeners, whether you're chasing that unique, rugged experience or a charming European comfort, both countries offer a place to rest your head. Just make sure you know what kind of rest you're signing up for. Alright, our current topic. We compare the ease of visa, immigration, and official procedures in Djibouti and Slovakia. It's like asking if you'd rather navigate a maze blindfolded or with a very chatty tour guide who might just lead you astray. Starting with Djibouti, I've heard stories that make you wonder if they're testing your patience or your detective skills. Imagine needing a stamp from 3 different offices, each only open when the other 2 are closed. Oops. It's like a bureaucratic treasure hunt, only the treasure is a piece of paper.
Treasure hunt, Mira? More like an entrance challenge. Ah! And you'd probably need at least 3 cups of coffee just to start understanding the requirements. For Djibouti, you're looking at a process that can feel quite manual, very old school. Think stacks of physical documents, multiple visits, and perhaps a good grasp of French or Arabic to truly get by. For short tourist stays, an e-visa is often available, which is a modern touch, but for anything longer than that, you might just want to pack a tent and learn to longer than that.
Oh, the romance of the e-visa. Oh, it's like a glimmer of hope before you plunge into the paper ocean. But then, imagine you've gathered all your documents for Djibouti, and they ask for something completely unexpected. Like proof of your childhood pet's veterinary records just to make sure you're a responsible individual. Well, I mean, who keeps that? It's almost a setup for a comedy sketch, isn't it? My clumsy self would probably spill coffee on the original document I had.
Mira, your childhood pet's vet records. I'd probably present a photo of my coffee mug and claim it's a proof of life document for my daily ritual. For Slovakia, the experience is, shall we say, more structured. Being an EU member, their processes are usually well defined, albeit sometimes still a bit dense with paperwork. You won't be asked for your pet's life story? Whoa, you won't be asked for your pet's life story, but you might need a certified translation of your own life story.
Well, at least Slovakia has an online system, even if it's booked out. Oh, that's a step up from potentially needing to send a carrier pigeon with your application in some places. It sounds like with Slovakia, you know the hoops you have to jump through, even if they're particularly high hoops. Aha! Whereas with Djibouti, it might feel like the hoops keep moving. You might show up with a neatly organized folder, only to be told, and it's now pink, not blue, and requires a signature from a wizard.
Indeed. In Slovakia, the language barrier can be the trickiest part for non-Slovak speakers in official settings. You might be staring at a document that looks like an ancient scroll thinking, I signed this right. It's less about a constantly changing form and more about deciphering the existing one. For instance, if you're registering your address, you might need to prove you have a legal right to. Well, it's less about a constantly changing form and more about deciphering your address. You've visited that address. It's all logical, but you need a translator or a very patient local friend.
Ah, the trusty local friend, often the unsung hero of expat life. Oh, it's like having a real-life quest companion for your bureaucratic adventures. If I didn't have my friends, I'd probably still be trying to figure out how to fill out a customs form. Oops. I think that's why these conversations are so important, right? It's not just about rules, but about the experience of navigating them. Slovakia offers more predictability, but Djibouti promises a more unforgettable tale for your memoirs.
Unforgettable? Yes. Like that time I almost bought a goat instead of a bus ticket because of a language mix-up. The point is, while Slovakia's procedures align with European standards, meaning a certain level of transparency and digital access, Djibouti still offers a raw, hands-on approach to its official processes. You might find yourself becoming an expert in local tea making while waiting for your turn. It's a different kind of immersion, to say the least.
For those of you out there dreaming of a new life, are you the predictable paperwork with many forms type? Or the let's see what happens today at the immigration office adventurer? Let's move on to access to and quality of health services, which is, super important if you're thinking about living anywhere. My friend once got a paper cut in Thailand and thought she'd need a full medical evacuation just to get a band-aid. Of course, it was fine, but it really makes you think about what's available when you actually need it. Oh.
I paper cut, Mira. Wow. That's almost as dramatic as my last stub to EA, an incident that nearly ended my stand-up career. But seriously, when we talk about healthcare in places like Djibouti and Slovakia, we're looking at quite a spectrum. Djibouti, I imagine, isn't exactly a medical tourism hotspot for, say, elective toe stubble removal.
Oh, come on, Leo. You always find a way to make it about your toes. But you're right, the differences are significant. In Djibouti, access to high-quality healthcare, especially outside the capital, can be quite limited. You often hear about relying on primary care centers, and for anything more complex, expats usually head to private clinics or even travel abroad. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me here.
Right. So, private clinics often means bring your own everything under well-stuffed wallet, right? It's like a medical adventure where you hope you pack the right supplies. I mean, if my appendix suddenly decided to start a performance art piece in Djibouti, I'd probably be more worried about the cost of the exit strategy than the actual surgery. Ouch. That's a dark thought. Even for me.
Oops! Don't even joke about that, Leo. But it does highlight the reality. Many public hospitals there face challenges like staffing and equipment. It's why NGOs often play a crucial role in providing basic services. Now, shifting gears to Slovakia, which as an EU member it's a whole different ballgame. Well,
a ball game where the ball isn't made of your last paycheck, hopefully. Slovakia, with its universal healthcare system, operates on a social insurance model. It's designed to be accessible, though accessible sometimes means accessible after a really long wait for a lot of paperwork. I've heard tales of expats needing to learn Slovak just to fill out the forms. It's like a language course bundled with your annual checkup.
Yes, but at least there's a system. Ooh, and many public hospitals in major cities like Bratislava offer decent care. While public options can sometimes mean longer wait times for specialists, private clinics are readily available for those who prefer quicker service or have private insurance. It's about having choices, which is a luxury in itself. What do you think about that, everyone?
Choices are great, Mira, as long as those choices don't lead me down a rabbit hole of paperwork. I once tried to get a prescription filled in a country where the pharmacist looked at me like I'd asked for a unicorn's horn. Oops. In Slovakia, while the system is robust, I bet a bit of linguistic improvisation is often needed. I mean, if you're trying to describe a mysterious rash to a doctor who only speaks Slovak, that's a whole new level of charades.
That would make for an amazing sketch, Leo. But on a serious note, the quality of healthcare in Slovakia generally meets European standards, especially in urban areas. Oh, they have good medical professionals, and for expats, English-speaking doctors are becoming more common in private practices. It's a sign of progress, don't you think?
Progress, yes. Progress in avoiding my charades performance. Aha! And let's not forget the dental care. I've heard Slovakia offers quite competitive prices for dental work compared to, say, some Western European countries. So if your teeth decide to go on strike, it might be a good place to consider. My dentist just looks at me unsized deeply before handing me the bill. Ouch. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Oh, definitely check out those dental options, Leo. I actually know a few people who plan dental holidays to places like Slovakia. Speaking of which, even the basic infrastructure makes a huge difference. In Djibouti, things like access to clean water and sanitation are fundamental public health concerns that impact everything.
Absolutely, Mira. It's about the entire ecosystem of well-being. In Slovakia, while you might grumble about the bureaucratic dance, the underlying public health infrastructure is far more established. You're not usually worried about basic hygiene impacting your health just by walking down the street. It's a comfort that we, perhaps, take for granted too often. It's almost too organized for my chaotic travel style.
Well, some chaos is good, but maybe not in healthcare. So, what we're seeing is that Djibouti presents a more challenging healthcare landscape where preparedness and private options are key for expats, while Slovakia offers a more reliable, European standard system, though navigating it might require some patience and perhaps a Slovak phrasebook. We'll talk about the details on Jet-Off.ai for sure.
Or a very expressive eyebrow game, if my experience is anything to go by. But yes, whether you're dealing with the limited resources of Djibouti or the bureaucratic maze of Slovakia, knowing what to expect is half the battle. It always comes down to doing your research, or in my case, making enough jokes to distract myself from any impending medical doom.
Oh, all right. Let's zoom into our next topic, transportation infrastructure and convenience. For Djibouti and Slovakia, well, what a pair to put on the road together, right? I'm already picturing a high-speed train trying to outrun a camel caravan. My brain's already making up dance moves for that scenario.
Wild Ride is right, Mira. I'm imagining Djibouti's rush hour involving a very determined camel trying to parallel park next to a dusty shared taxi. Oh, but seriously, when you look at Djibouti, it's all about that port, isn't it? The port of Djibouti, then the Dor el Alti port, they're practically the heartbeat of the region, connecting Ethiopia to the sea. It's less about the internal roads for the everyday commuter and more about that massive international flow of goods.
Oh, absolutely. The port is like Djibouti's main artery, isn't it? Wow, it's so vital for trade in East Africa. But wait, I want to add something there. Speaking of connections, what about the Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway? That sounds like a fascinating link, especially when you think about travelers or goods moving between countries. I bet our listeners who plant ribs through Jet-Off.ai are already noting that down.
That railway is definitely a game changer for the region, Mira. It's a standard gauge line that really ties Ethiopia to the coast, offering a relatively smoother passage for cargo and passengers. But let's be real. Outside of that and a few paved roads in Djibouti City, the road infrastructure isn't exactly built for joyrides. You're more likely to encounter, shall we say, off-road adventures without necessarily asking for them. Boops. If you're hoping for seamless highway cruising, you'll need to adjust your expectations.
Whoa, off-road adventures is a great way to put it. My internal compass is already spinning. So, if you're not on the railway or sticking to the city, are we talking about shared taxis, or is it more of a find-your-own-way kind of vibe? I'm picturing myself trying to hitch a ride on a brightly decorated truck, probably trying to teach them a new dance move.
You'd probably charm your way onto any vehicle, Mira. For urban transport in Djibouti City, shared taxis, often called taxis collectifes, and minibuses are pretty much the go-to. It's a very communal experience, which can be great for soaking up local life. But intercity travel, beyond that railway, it gets pretty limited. You're looking at hiring private vehicles or relying on some serious local knowledge to get around. Fuel can be pricey too. Ouch. So, for anyone watching this on YouTube,
That's a huge contrast with Slovakia, isn't it? Over there. It's all about smooth sailing on well-maintained roads in the fantastic railway system. Wow, I imagine you could practically roll out of bed, grab a croissant, and be halfway across the country before your coffee gets cold. What's the main takeaway for how easy it is to get around in a Slovakian city?
you're not wrong, Mira. Slovakia's infrastructure is built on solid European standards. They've got a respectable network of motorways and expressways, and their railway system, run by ZSSK, is extensive and quite efficient. In cities like Bratislava or Cassis, public transport is a dream. Trams, buses, trolleybuses. You can get pretty much anywhere with ease. It's a stark contrast to the adventure travel we just discussed.
Oh, so no accidental overdying unless you specifically seek it out for an extreme sport? That's a relief for my knees. And what about getting between cities? Are the trains all slick and fast, or is it more of a scenic, take your time kind of journey? I love a good scenic route, but sometimes you just need to get there.
Both, actually. Slovakia's inner city trains are quite efficient and connect all the major towns, so you can definitely get places quickly. But you can also sit back, enjoy the beautiful landscape, and pretend you're in a travelogue. They also have a very decent bus network that complements the trains. You know, you can actually plan your trips, book tickets online, and not worry if your chosen mode of transport will suddenly decide to take a detour to visit a distant relative.
That's so important for convenience, isn't it? Being able to rely on a schedule and know you'll get there. Wow, I bet our jet I users appreciate that kind of predictability when they're mapping out the European adventures. So, what's the biggest gotcha for transport in Slovakia? Is it just city traffic or something else entirely?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Mira. While the overall system is good, you do get regional differences in public transport frequency. And yes, traffic congestion in major cities, especially Bratislava, can be a bit of a headache during peak hours. Ouch, but it's nothing that'll make you feel like you're going to spontaneously combust from frustration. More like a gentle nudge to maybe take the tram instead. For anyone looking for more detailed route planning or tips on avoiding those city bottlenecks, you can always check out Jet Off A.
I guess every country has its traffic quirks, doesn't it? Even if one's quirk is a camel, and the other's is a slightly delayed tram. But overall, it sounds like Slovakia leans heavily into efficiency, while Djibouti is more about strategic, regional connections. It's fascinating how different countries prioritize their mobility.
Absolutely. You could say Slovakia offers a more predictable journey, while Djibouti provides a journey into the wonderfully unpredictable. Both have their charms depending on what kind of traveler you are. If you're into precision and punctuality, Slovakia's got your back. If you thrive on the unexpected and have a good sense of humor, Djibouti might just be your next great adventure.
So, for our amazing listeners watching on YouTube, what kind of transportation do you prefer? The efficient and predictable, or the charmingly unpredictable? Let us know in the comments. Ooh, you know, Leo, sometimes I wonder if my brain has enough slots for all the languages in the world. It's like trying to juggle a dozen different colored balls, and I'm just hoping none of them hit me in the face. Speaking of which, let's dive into the fascinating world of language barriers, undies of communication in Djibouti and Slovakia. Wow.
Your brain slots, Mira, are probably filled with dance routines and bad puns, not languages. But I get your point. Djibouti's linguistic mosaic, isn't it? You've got official Arabic and French, then local flavors like Somali and Afar all mingling. It's not just a language barrier. It's a whole language barrier. It's a whole linguistic obstacle course. Whoa. I'm certain that our listeners who've tried to order a coffee there without a translator would agree with me.
Oh, an obstacle course sounds like an adventure to me. I can just imagine trying to learn a greasing in all three, then mixing them up and accidentally asking French. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? A wide smile and exaggerated hand gestures are truly universal, aren't they? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do gestures really save the day?
They save the day, Mira. Until you accidentally insult someone's mother with an ill-placed thumb gesture. While charming, relying on charades for anything beyond more food, please, can get tricky. Especially for expats or anyone trying to navigate official paperwork. Imagine trying to explain your tax situation through interpretive dance. Oops. That's when you really appreciate a common language or, dare I say, a very patient local.
You've got a point there, Monsieur Comedian. But let's shift our linguistic spotlight to Slovakia, a country where I imagine my request for extra phone wouldn't be met with quite so many confused stares. Ooh, Slovak is the main language, but it feels like English might be more accessible, especially among the younger crowd or in the bustling cities. I mean, I once tried to order a pastry in a small Slovakian village, and the baker just pointed, smiled, and gave me indication success.
Your definition of communication success seems to involve a lot of pointing and smiling, Mira, which is fair. In Slovakia, you're absolutely right, English proficiency is generally higher, particularly in places like Bratislava or Kosice. But don't let that fool you. Slovak itself is a formidable language, full of delightful grammatical cases that will make your head spin faster than you do in the Macarena. Wow. I'm thinking of those moments when you think you've said hello, but actually just declared you're undying.
I'd rather declare love for a potato than accidentally say something offensive. Ouch. But it's not just about the words, is it? It's the cultural communication norms. I've heard that in Slovakia, politeness and a slightly less direct approach are valued. It's like a gentle dance of conversation, whereas in Djibouti, with its vibrant markets, it might be more direct, more let's get to the point, friend. Do you guys agree with us? Please let us know in the comments below on YouTube.
A gentle dance of conversation sounds exhausting. I prefer my conversations like my coffee strung and to the point. While that Mediterranean warmth or African directness can sometimes feel like a breath of fresh air. You're right. Cultural nuance is key. A simple no in one place might mean try again harder in another. It's a minefield of politeness and expectations. That's why having some quick tips on Jet Off I for local customs is a lifesaver.
Absolutely. It's all part of the grand adventure, isn't it? Learning a few key phrases, even if you mangle them, is a game changer. Oh, it shows respect and, honestly, it often gets you a laugh and a warmer welcome. I mean, trying to say thank you In far, even badly, is like unlocking a secret level of travel experience. Wow!
Or unlocking a new level of awkwardness, Mira. But you're right, a genuine effort goes a long way. So, whether you're navigating the linguistic labyrinth of Djibouti with its Arabic and French, or tackling the melodic challenges of Slovak, both countries offer unique communication landscapes. Just remember your basic hello and thank you. And for everything else, well, that's what we're here for. And if you like this chat, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You know, Leo, when we talk about cultural diversity and tolerance, my mind immediately pictures a vibrant tapestry woven with countless threads of different colors and textures. And thinking about our first country, Djibouti, it's practically a masterclass in that. Oh, it's like a small country, but a giant melting pot, right?
A melting pot, or maybe a very crowded spice rat, depending on the day. But you're not wrong, Mira. Djibouti's location alone makes it a crossroads of cultures. You've got a foreign dish as the main groups, but also Somalis, Arabs, Ethiopians, and even a European Necca with French and Italian influences. It's almost like everyone just decided to park their cultural caravan there and see what happens. Wow!
Exactly. Imagine all those delicious, cool, unknown traditions, music styles, and stories all simmering together. I bet their street food scene is just incredible. And speaking of language, with Arabic and French as official languages, plus Somali and Darfur widely spoken, it's like a beautiful babble of voices. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me.
Or a fantastic way to accidentally order an extra coffee when you only wanted one. Oops, but yes, the linguistic diversity is striking. It speaks to a certain level of tolerance too, I suppose. Historically, as a trade hub, they've had to be open to outsiders. You can run a port without a bit of give and take. It's a pragmatic tolerance, perhaps.
Well, whether it's pragmatic or just plain wonderful, it shows how different communities can truly live side by side. I love that. And the predominant religion being Muslim, yet with a Christian minority, further highlights that spirit of coexistence. It reminds me that we can always find common ground, even when our paths are different. Ooh.
Common ground can sometimes be tricky to find when people are arguing over who gets the last parking spot, but I get your point. Now, shifting gears a bit to our second country, Slovakia. It's a very different picture culturally, isn't it? Less of a bustling port, more of a charming, slightly less chaotic European tapestry.
Oh, absolutely, and just as fascinating. While it might not have the same dizzying mix as Djibouti, Slovakia still boasts a rich cultural landscape. We're talking about a predominantly Slovak population, but with significant Hungarian, Roma, Czech, Russian, and Ukrainian minorities. It's a mosaic that reflects centuries of European history and movement. Wow.
Right. And while that sounds lovely on paper, Slovakia has its own unique complexities, particularly with the Roma population. It's one thing to have different groups. It's another to truly integrate them without prejudice. It's a reminder that tolerance isn't just about sharing a border, but sharing opportunity. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, so please tell us in the comments section on YouTube if you've experienced this firsthand.
That's a very fair point, Leo. Integration is a continuous journey everywhere, and it certainly comes with its challenges. But Slovakia's commitment to recognizing minority languages like Hungarian and Romani officially shows a genuine effort to preserve those cultural identities. That's a huge step toward respect, don't you think?
It is. Though I'd wager there's a good deal of bureaucracy involved in making those official. It wouldn't be Europe without a mountain of paperwork. But seriously, the predominant Roman Catholicism alongside Protestant, Greek Catholic, and Orthodox communities also points to a historical capacity for different faiths to exist within the same national fabric. It's not always perfect, but it's there.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? No place is perfectly harmonious all the time, but the effort, the willingness to coexist, is what matters the most. Whether it's the bustling diversity of Djibouti or the layered history of Slovakia, both countries offer valuable lessons in how we navigate our differences. Oh,
I'd pay good money to see that. Especially if there's coffee involved. It makes you think about how our perspectives are shaped by where we live, doesn't it? What one country considers normal diversity, another might be striving towards. And for anyone looking to truly understand these nuances, check out Jet Off AI for deeper insights into these cultures before you pack your metaphorical dancing shoes.
oh, that's a brilliant idea. Because ultimately, whether it's Djibouti's vibrant crossroads or Slovakia's intricate mosaic, both places invite us to open our minds and embrace the rich stories that people bring. It's what makes the world such an incredible place to explore. Wow! And if you're enjoying our little cultural jaunt, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Go on YouTube. It truly helps us keep these conversations going. Oh, alright, so from all the talk about, well, let's just say, the art of not missing flights, it leads us beautifully into our next topic. Educational opportunities and language schools. And today, we're looking at Djibouti and Slovakia. Wow, I'm already picturing vibrant classrooms and eager learners.
Eager learners indeed, Mira. Or perhaps just desperately trying to figure out which bus goes where. You know, speaking of education, my definition of language school often involves a local bar and a very patient bartender. My brain just absorbs new words better with a little Aheen liquid encouragement.
I can just imagine you. Hello, bartender, one more pivot, please. Trying to learn Slovakian. Seriously, let's dive into Djibouti first. It's a fascinating place, a real crossroads of cultures, which already screams language rich, doesn't it? French and Arabic are official, but you also hear Somali in the far. Wow.
Ah, the crossroads. That's usually where I get lost. Djibouti's educational scene, from what I've observed, is a bit of a mixed bag. You have the public system, which often struggles with resources, particularly outside the capital. Then there are private and international schools that cater to a different crowd. It's like trying to learn the alphabet while also negotiating a camel trade ambitious.
Well, I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me that there's so much potential there. Oh, and for language learning, imagine immersion. If you're really committed to picking up Arabic or French, you're practically living in a classroom. Plus, there are some vocational training programs aiming to boost the local workforce. It's not all formal universities, you know.
True, Mira. True. Living in a classroom is one way to put it. Being constantly corrected by everyone is another. I actually have a friend who tried to learn a few phrases in a FAR and came back sounding like he was clearing his throat for an opera. Ouch. But on a more serious note, access to higher education can be a challenge, and literacy rates, especially in rural areas, still have room for improvement. It's a journey, not a sprint, for their system.
That's a fair point, Leo. But every journey starts with a single step. Now, shifting gears to Slovakia. Wait, I want to add something there. Oh, for anyone thinking about studying in Djibouti, perhaps even for a short language course, Jet Off AI could be a great place to start looking for flight deals and accommodation. Just say in...
Aha! Smooth, Mira. Very smooth. You always find a way to plug us in. Wow. Speaking of plugs, let's talk Slovakia. An EU member, which means their educational system generally aligns with European standards. Universities like Comenius University and Bratislava are well regarded, especially in medicine and science. It's this camel trade negotiation and more rigorous academic pursuit.
Absolutely. And many of their universities offer programs in English, which is a huge draw for international students. Wow, imagine getting a top-notch education in the heart of Europe. Plus, learning Slovak, while challenging, opens up a whole new linguistic world. Ooh, our Slovakian listeners, do you agree that learning Slovak is a badge of honor? I bet it is.
Badge of honor, source of constant mispronunciation s. Slovak is a Slavic language, so if you've already grappled with, say, Polish or Czech, you might have a slight advantage. Otherwise, it's a bit like trying to untangle a ball of yarn after a cat's had its way with it. Ouch. But yes, for those committed, there are plenty of language schools, particularly in larger cities like Bratislava and Cassis.
Well, I think learning any new language is an adventure. My personal approach is to find the most colorful children's books and start there. If a 5-year-old can read it, so can I. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you find children's books helpful? Let us know in the YouTube comments.
Children's books, Mirror. I prefer the more adult method of trial and error, usually involving ordering the wrong thing at a restaurant. Oops! But for Slovakia, the push for digital literacy and innovative teaching methods is quite strong. They're not just sticking to calcboards, they're investing in the future. It's less memorize the dates and more solve the problem.
That's fantastic. I think incorporating technology and critical thinking is essential. Oh, for anyone considering a language school in either country, getting student testimonials is always smart. You don't want to end up in a class where the teacher is still teaching Latin from 1950th.
Unless it's a very specific kind of niche language school, Mira. But you're right, research is key. So whether you're off to Djibouti to soak up some French and Arabic, or heading to Slovakia for a deep dive into engineering on the new Slavic tongue, the opportunities are there. Just remember to pack your sense of humor and a lot of coffee in my case.
And if you're planning any of these educational adventures, remember to check out Jetofei, I for your travel needs. We'll have some related articles and resources there too. Wow. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you found this comparison insightful. Your support means the world to us. Oh. Alright, so speaking of embracing the unexpected, let's dive into something truly fundamental that shapes everything climate and seasonal conditions. I'm imagining us trying to pack for Djibouti versus packing for Slovakia, and my suitcase is already having an identity crisis.
Oh, my suitcase would just spontaneously combust if I tried to put shorts and a winter coat in it at the same time. Djibouti's climate is basically a permanent melting mood. Wow, you're talking about an arid desert where the sun isn't just shining, it's actively trying to high-five your eyeballs.
High-five your eyeballs. That's exactly it. I read that temperatures there rarely dip below 25 degrees Celsius, even in winter. And in summer, we're looking at average highs of 40 degrees Celsius or more. Ouch. That's not a summer that's some even with an ocean view.
An oven with an ocean view are like that. I'm certain our listeners in Djibouti are nodding their heads, probably fanning themselves with their phones right now. For someone like me who needs a certain amount of coffee and a certain amount of coffee and a certain amount of not melting into a puddle to function, Djibouti would be a fascinating challenge. My internal thermostat would just give up.
Well, I'd probably be trying to figure out how to make us an angel without getting third-degree burns. But imagine the vibrant colors people would wear, trying to stay cool. I bet it making us how life adapts. Ooh, what's fascinating is how life adapts. You probably find people moving slower, working during cooler parts of the day. Maybe an afternoon siesta is just essential.
Oh, absolutely. A siesta isn't a luxury, it's a survival strategy. And speaking of survival, the lack of rainfall is also a huge factor. They get, what, around 130 a year? That's barely a decent afternoon shower in some places. I mean, my coffee machine probably produces more water than that in a week. It certainly puts things into perspective about water conservation. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about that.
And then you jump over to Slovakia, and it's like Mother Nature completely changed her mind. Wow, from scorching desert to distinct for seasons. You've got cold, snowy winters perfect for skiing, then warm summers, colorful autumns, and blooming springs. It's like Djibouti's exact opposite wardrobe.
Whoa! Yeah, Slovakia is the 4 outfits for one day kind of place. You'd need a thermal jacket for the morning, a t-shirt for the afternoon, and maybe a light sweater for the evening, all in the same summer day, especially if you're up in the high Tatras. My packing strategy would be just bring everything.
Mine too. I'd be doing outfit changes between every tourist attraction. My dog, who absolutely loves snow, would be in heaven during a Slovakian winter. Imagine the winter sports. The cozy evenings by a fireplace. It's a completely different kind of chilling out, isn't it?
Chilling out literally. My blood turns to ice just thinking about snow. Ouch, but I do appreciate the crisp air, even if it's cutting. The variation in rainfall, there is quite balance throughout the year, unlike Djibouti where you just pray for a drizzle. It truly impacts how people plan their year, from agriculture to festivals. No one in Slovakia is planning a beach day in January.
Well, I'd probably still try to build a snowman in January, even if it was tiny. And that's the beauty, isn't it? The sheer contrast. One country is all about staying cool and conserving every drop, while the other offers this incredible variety, allowing for different activities all year round. I mean, if you like extreme heat, Djibouti is your paradise. If you like to experience a little bit of everything, then Slovakia is calling your name.
Yeah, if you like to know what sweating through your pores while standing still feels like, Djibouti's your spot. Oh, but if you like the occasional shiver or a good ski slope, Slovakia gives you that. It's almost like they split the weather in half and said, you take all the heat, you take all the seasons.
It's incredible, really. And it makes you wonder how adaptable humans truly are. From surviving extreme dry heat to thriving in snowy landscapes. Wow! It's all about what kind of climate adventure you're looking for, I guess. And speaking of adventures, for more deep dives into countries and their unique features, don't forget to check out Jet-Off AI. You can find even more specialized insights there.
Jet-Off AI, your personalized weather forecaster for life decisions. And if you're enjoying our little global climate tour, hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Folks, we love seeing those numbers climb. It helps us know you're not just listening. You're really listening.
You're really listening, and probably wondering if we're going to spontaneously break into weather report dance. Oh, we just might.
I'd have to find a climate-appropriate outfit for that first.
Ooh, food, culture, and nutritional alternatives. I absolutely love this topic. It's like a delicious scavenger hunt around the world. Whoa, I'm always so curious to see what people eat and how they make it unique.
Unique, or just what's available? You say scavenger hunt, I say playing culinary roulette. But I'm sure you've packed your taste buds for the adventure, right?
Absolutely, we're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia, and I'm already imagining the flavor journey. For Djibouti, you get this amazing blend of African, Arab, and French influences. Think fragrant rice, spicy stews called WOT, and lots of fresh fish from the Red Sea. Oh, they even have these incredible flatbreads, like injera, that are perfect for scooping up every last bit of flavor.
WOT? Sounds like someone's just asking a question in a culinary conversation. I can just picture a cook saying more spice, and a customer replying WOT. Anyway, speaking of simple pleasures, I hear the French influence means they're quite fond of a good baguette there. It's like a little piece of Paris got lost in the desert.
And the nutritional side of Djibouti and cuisine often relies on what's local and fresh. Lots of fish, goat, and, interestingly, camel meat is a staple. Wow, while it's not a place known for a plethora of nutritional alternatives, in the Western sense, as in, you won't find a huge vegan smoothie bar on every corner. They do have a lot of pulses, vegetables, and those hearty stews can be incredibly nourishing. It's about making the most of what nature provides.
Making the most of what nature provides. Or as I like to call it, eating whatever doesn't run away first. Now, shifting gears to Slovakia, you're looking at something entirely different. It's all about hearty, Central European comfort food. Think potatoes, cabbage, pork, and cheese. Lots of cheese.
Oh, yes. Slovakia is famous for brindisi IV Hellas KY, right? Those delicious potato dumplings with sheep cheese and bacon. Wow. I've seen pictures. It just looks like a warm hug on a plate.
A warm hug that might put you to sleep for a few hours. Hey, those aren't exactly light meals. Kapu Street Nika, their cabbage soup, is another staple. It's the kind of food designed to fuel you through a cold winter, not necessarily a summer beach day. Nutritionally, it's robust, but maybe not what you'd call diverse in terms of light options. My internal alarm goes off if I see a plate with too much beige.
Well, I bet it's delicious. And speaking of nutritional alternatives, I imagine in bigger Slovakian cities, you'd find more modern options. Aha! Like plant-based cafes or different dietary choices creeping in. I'm certain that our listeners living in Bratislava or Cassis would agree with me.
You'd hope so. Though sometimes those traditional palates are harder to sway than a stubborn mule. But yes, in the urban hubs, you'll certainly find more vegetarian-friendly places and probably even some oat milk for your coffee. Though I'd probably just stick to the black stuff. Can't mess with perfection.
I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any of you successfully found incredible vegan alternatives in a tiny Slovakian village? Or perhaps discovered a Djibouti and dish that completely surprised you with its healthy twist? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. We love hearing your food adventures.
Or your food mishaps. I'm always open to those. But to your point, Mira, it's about evolution, isn't it? Traditional cuisines are slowly adapting. Though I suspect you'd still get a funny look if you asked for deconstructed brindisi Hellas KY in a classic Slovak pub.
You're probably right. But who knows, maybe someday. So, whether it's the rich, aromatic flavors of Djibouti or the comforting, hearty dishes of Slovakia, both countries offer a unique peek into their cultures through their food. And finding those nutritional alternatives, whether traditional or modern, is all part of the fun.
Indeed. And for those planning a culinary trip, whether you're craving camel stew or sheep cheese dumplings, you can find a wealth of information about local eateries and dietary options on Jet-Off AI. It's almost as if they've already thought of everything.
Alright, so our current topic, we're diving into the historical, cultural, and artistic values of two fascinating countries, Djibouti and Slovakia. When you think about history's deep occurs in the vibrant cultures that come from them, it just makes me want to put on a costume and start dancing. Let's start with Djibouti. Now, for a country that's relatively young in its modern form, its history is actually incredibly ancient, stretching back to crucial trade routes. Well, it's like a tiny, strategically placed gem that everyone wanted a piece of for centuries.
So, I think that we can talk of that. Strategically placed gem, you say? Sounds like every empire's favorite phrase for let's take it. You know, when countries are described as strategically important, it usually means they've had a lot of, let's call it, uninvited guests. Uninvited guests over the centuries. Djibouti, with its location on the regional part of the Austro. Aha. From the Great Moravian Empire to being part of the Ostate. For anyone looking to control trade.
Bad coffee. Now that's a historical event you truly regret, I'm sure. Ouch. But speaking of history, the cultural blend in Djibouti is just incredible. You have the Afar and Somali people, each with their own rich oral traditions, music, and dances. It's not about grand, ancient ruins there, but about the living culture, the vibrant traditions, the storytelling that keeps history alive in people's hearts. Wow. I'm actually curious about what Irving cultures think about rich as its ancient structures.
That's a fair point, Mira. It's less about the literal Stone Age for Djibouti, and more about the story age. They've got the castles to prove their history age. Hundreds of them, practically one per family. Whoa! Their cultural tapestry is woven with deep Slavic roots and credible folk music. Those lively Kardas dances and crafts as them crafts as living in Sloven with deep Slavic roots and credible folk music. Those lively Kardas dances and crafts like intricate embroidery that feel like they're telling tales from centuries ago. It's like every village has its own historical.
You make it sound like everyone in Slovakia lives in a castle, Leo. Oops. But the artistry in that embroidery must be truly amazing. Speaking of artistry, in Djibouti, you might not find classical art galleries like in Europe, but the artistry comes alive in their crafts, the intricate jewelry, woven goods, and the expressive nature of their music. It's an art that's deeply functional and part of everyday life. This is where Djibouti really shines. By the way, our friends at Djibouti love uncovering stories like this, showing how every corner of the world holds unique artistic expression.
Functional art, you say? My coffee poop is functional art every morning. Does that count? Now, Slovakia, on the other hand, has a more traditional European art scene. Think medieval frescoes hidden in churches, stunning Gothic architecture, and Renaissance pieces that make you stare. Wow. Plus, that folk art tradition, like their pottery and woodworking, is incredibly distinct. It's the kind of art that makes you realize people put a lot of time into things before fast fashion was a concept.
That's so true. So on one hand, you have Djibouti's living, breathing, vibrant cultural artistry, and on the other, Slovakia's centuries-old, tangible art history and folk traditions. It's not a competition, really. Both offer such unique windows into the human spirit. Wow. I'd love to learn a traditional Djibouti in ants, and then maybe try to carve something intricate in Slovakia. I wonder if are you to blending these very different historical and artistic values, if you've ever tried to mix a Djiboutian ants with a Slovakian beauty.
And please, if you're attempting that dance fusion, film it and tag us. Oh, you know, sometimes it feels like when we talk about history and culture, it's always about the big ticket. Items, the oldest monument, the grandest painting. But what's truly fascinating, and Djibouti consistently reminds us of this, is how deeply intertwined these values are with the people themselves. The everyday traditions that keep them alive. It's not just about what you see in a museum, but what you experience when you actually go there, right?
Oh, so we're diving into the absolute majesty of Earth today, aren't we? Natural beauties and landscapes my favorite kind of eye candy. Wow. I'm already imagining all the vibrant colors and wild adventures.
Yes, from one extreme to another, I suppose. Our planet certainly keeps things interesting. Today, we're taking a look at Djibouti and Slovakia. I'm already picturing the contrasting packing lists. Mira, you'd probably pack a full ski suit for Djibouti and flip-flops for the high Tatras, just to be ironic, wouldn't you?
You know me too well, Leo. But seriously, let's start with Djibouti. My mind immediately jumps to Lake Castle. Wow, It's like stepping onto another planet, a vast, shimmering, salty expanse that looks like a moonscape right here on Earth. The lowest point in Africa, too. You can almost float on it without even trying, like a human-sized snack cracker in a gigantic, mineral-rich soup.
Right. Lake Castle, where the swimming is less about strokes and more about not dissolving. And those stark, volcanic landscapes around it, almost Martian. I imagine it's less about lush green hikes and more about admiring geological wonders from a very, very sturdy air-conditioned vehicle. It's truly unique though. I'm certain our listeners living in that region would agree there's nothing quite like it. Ew!
Absolutely. And speaking of otherworldly, Lake Abbey with its towering limestone chimneys, it's like a set from a sci-fi movie. Oh, plus, you have the beautiful coral reefs in the Gulf of Tadjouré, teeming with marine life, including those gentle giants, the whale sharks. So you get the arid, dramatic landscapes and then suddenly, this explosion of underwater life. What a contrast, right?
Indeed. From a desert so dry it would make a tumbler blush to an underwater world that probably makes my coffee look boring. It's the kind of place where you either embrace the extreme or just stick to the souvenir shops. Now, shifting gears dramatically, let's talk about Slovakia. My internal temperature gauge is already dropping just thinking about it.
Whoa, what a shift from salt flats to, well, actual flats that are very green. Slovakia is like a completely different universe. Wow, think High Tatras, those majestic mountains with their glacial valleys, sparkling lakes, and dense, ancient forests. It's like something out of a fairy tale, where every turn reveals a hidden waterfall, or a charming little village. Oh, I'd be skipping through those forests, probably looking for a friendly bear to high-five.
Hey, friendly bear, you'll be if it just gave you a blank stare. The Tatra Mountains are breathtaking, no doubt. But for those of us who prefer our adventures with less uphill climbing and more, say, sitting, it's still spectacular to behold. I bet our listeners who braid those peaks have some amazing stories. What do you think, guys? Any close calls with a particularly steep incline? Let us know in the YouTube comments.
Oh, you're just teasing. But you're right, the hiking is epic. And then there's Slovak Paradise National Park. Wow. Canyons, gorges, waterfalls, you literally climb ladders bolted into rock faces to navigate some of these trails. It's an adventure park designed by Mother Nature herself. Ooh, it's an entirely different kind of wild from Djibouti, wouldn't you say?
It sounds less like a park and more like an elaborate escape room. Aha! I imagine the park rangers just hand you a map and a pat on the back, saying, "Good luck, don't look down." And the K's, to like the Dobbs and Skies cave. Whoa. From scorching heat to underground ice in a single podcast. We're really giving our listeners a global whiplash today.
Exactly. It's about showing the incredible range our world offers. So, if you crave the stark, puny, almost alien beauty of a salt lake surrounded by volcanic desert, Djibouti is your place. But if you dream of lush, green mountains, cascading waterfalls, and challenging hikes through ancient forests, then Slovakia beckons.
Right. One demands a heavy-duty sun hat and maybe a hazmat suit. The other requires crampons and a good sense of direction. Seriously though, both offer incredible natural wonders, just very, very different ones. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, which landscape calls to them more. The edge of the world vibe of Djibouti, or the Middle-earth feel of Slovakia?
Oh, I think it depends on your mood for adventure. Do you want to feel like you've landed on Mars, or like you're starring in an epic fantasy film? Both countries prove that nature's imagination knows no bounds. And for all you adventurers out there planning your next trip, don't forget to check out AI for some amazing travel ideas and tips. Wow.
Indeed. Just remember to pack appropriately, Mira, for whichever alien planet or enchanted forest you choose next. I'm pretty sure you'd try to ride a whale shark if given the chance.
Okay, Leon, let's dive into sports, activity, and adventure options for Djibouti and Slovakia. I'm already buzzing thinking about Djibouti's incredible diving. Wow, imagine swimming with whale sharks in those turquoise waters. Ooh, it's like a dream, isn't it?
Swimming with whale sharks. Sounds like a great way to find out if I'm fast enough to outswim a very large fish. And speaking of extreme, isn't Djibouti home to Lac-Assel? That super salty lake. I hear it's so hot there, you could probably boil water just by holding it up to the sun. Ouch. I'd need about 5 coffees just to think about that adventure.
You're always thinking about coffee, Leo. But yes, Lac-Assel is incredible, one of the lowest points on Earth, so salty it crystallizes. It's an adventure just to breathe there, I imagine. For anyone watching this on YouTube, let us know if you've ever floated in a super salty lake like that. I'm curious.
Float? I'd probably sink after all the street food I've had. Oops. But seriously, Djibouti seems built for the adventurous soul diving, desert trekking. You probably don't see a lot of casual strolls in a park there, do you? Unless the park is made of sand.
Well, maybe not the typical park, but the landscape itself is a giant playground. Think about it, desert safaris, exploring volcanic landscapes around Lac Djibouti. It's raw, untamed nature. Wow, definitely for those who crave a unique kind of thrill.
Or for those who lost a bet. Okay, so that's Djibouti, all about the heat, the deep, and the very salty. What about Slovakia? I picture a lot of mountains on cold weather. Am I wrong, Mira? I'd need a different kind of coffee for that.
Not wrong at all, Leo. Slovakia is like Djibouti's chilly, mountainous cousin. The high Tatras are absolutely breathtaking for hiking, mountaineering, and in winter, skiing and snowboarding. Wow, it's a completely different kind of adventure, all about crisp air and stunning peaks.
So, from swimming with whale sharks to trying not to slide down a mountain on skis. Both sound like they require a good sense of humor, which our Jet Off AI-sponsored podcast certainly has in abundance. I'm curious, Mir, which would you pick for a day, chasing whale sharks or hitting the slopes?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, I'm an all of the above kind of girl, Leo. But if I had to choose, I think the sheer wonder of diving in Djibouti's Red Sea, seeing all that marine life, would just fill my heart with joy. And then maybe for dessert, a quick skeet rib in Slovakia. What about you, Mr. Stand-Up?
Me? I'd probably pick the coffee break between the whale sharks and the ski slopes. But if pressed, I appreciate the observation opportunities in a busy ski resort. Lots of people trying to look cool, then gracefully falling. Ouch, that's prime material right there. I'm certain that our listeners on YouTube might have their own favorites. What's your go-to adventure, guys? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, definitely. I bet there are some super adventurous folks out there who've done both. Wow. And for those who are thinking about their next big trip, maybe our little chat has given you some ideas. No matter what you choose, you're in for an unforgettable experience.
Just remember to pack the right gear, and a very large thermos of coffee for either extreme. Especially if you're like me and need a personal energy boost to appreciate adventure.
Alright, so after all that talk about delicious food and stunning landscapes, let's dive into something equally crucial for many travelers' nightlife and entertainment venues. I'm already picturing myself dancing on a beach somewhere, or maybe just swaying gently. First up, Djibouti. Leo, what's your take on catching some late-night fun there?
Nightlife in Djibouti, eh? Well, Mira, Unless your idea of late-night fun involves a quiet chat over mint tea or watching a fishing boat return at dawn, you might be adjusting your expectations. I imagine it's less about pulsating clubs and more about the hum of conversation in a local cafe. But hey, an observant traveler finds entertainment everywhere, right?
You're always looking for material, aren't you? But you've got a point. While Djibouti might not be Ibiza, I actually find the idea of a more relaxed, authentic evening quite charming. Ooh. Picture this, a bustling market winding down, the smell of spices, and maybe some local musicians playing traditional tunes in a modest setting. It's about immersion, not just thumping beats. I'm certain that our listeners interested in culture would totally agree with me.
Right, immersion. That's one way to put it. That's one way to put it. Though I once immersed myself in a marketplace in Morocco and nearly walked out with a camel, so one has to be careful. Whoa, in Djibouti, you're looking at a scene that's primarily influenced by its conservative culture. Most of the nightlife tends to revolve around hotels, bars, and restaurants, especially in Djibouti city, catering to expats or those passing through. It's more of a low-key, international lounge vibe than a wild party.
And honestly, sometimes a low-key lounge is exactly what you need after a day of exploring. Oh, no flashing lights, no east-plisting music, just good company and perhaps a drink with a tiny umbrella. It sounds quite relaxing. But wait, I want to add something there. Are there any specific cultural performances, like traditional dances or storytelling, that visitors can enjoy? Because I'd definitely be up for learning a new dance move.
Mira, you'd probably try to teach the traditional dancers a new move, wouldn't you? Yes, traditional music and dance are part of the cultural fabric, often seen at local celebrations or through cultural centers, but they aren't typically part of a regular nightlife circuit like a theater show every Saturday. But let's hop across the continent to Slovakia, a country that probably has a completely different definition of nightlife.
Oh, Slovakia. Now, we're talking my language literally, with all the dancing. Oh, I'm imagining vibrant capital cities like Bratislava and Cassis, buzzing with energy once the sun goes down. Am I right, Leo? I'm already picturing cute little pubs and maybe even some really cool clubs.
You're not wrong, Mira. While Djibouti offers a quiet charm, Slovakia comes alive with a distinctly European energy. Wow, Bratislava, especially, has a thriving nightlife. We're talking pubs, bars, clubs playing everything from techno to local pop, and even some pretty impressive live music venues. It's the kind of place where a casual drink can easily turn into an impromptu dance-off. I swear after a certain hour, everyone there just spontaneously starts doing the polka. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think of polka.
Now that's my kind of night. Oh, seriously, the contrast is fascinating. In Slovakia, I'm sure, is a strong pub culture, maybe even craft beer scenes brewing. Pun intended. Beyond clubs, do they have a rich theatre scene, or maybe cool indie cinemas for film buffs? I love a good rom-com after a busy day.
They absolutely do. Slovakia, particularly Bratislava, blends traditional European pub culture with modern entertainment. You'll find cozy pubs offering local beers, stylish cocktail bars, and underground clubs that keep the beat going until dawn. For those who prefer culture over cocktail, there's a strong theater and dopper scene, especially in the larger cities. Wow! And yes, independent cinemas often showcase a great mix of local and international films. So, whether you want to debate philosophy over a pint or lucidity?
No camels, but maybe some dramatic opera singers. Oh, so if someone's looking for a night out that's more about lively interaction and diverse options, Slovakia sounds like a definite winner. But if you're seeking quiet reflection or a truly unique cultural experience, Djibouti has its own understated charm. It really depends on your mood, doesn't it?
Exactly, Mira. It's all about what you're in the mood for, a slow dance with tradition in Djibouti or a fast-paced whirl in Slovakia. And speaking of whirls, if you're finding this comparison as fascinating as a perfectly poured pint of craft beer, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us keep these conversations flowing, and you can find more insights on Jet Off AI.
That's a great point, Nia. Because let's be honest, finding the perfect night out is like finding the perfect travel destination. It's subjective. But it's good to know that both countries offer their own version of unwinding after hours. I think I could have fun in either, even if one night involved a quiet cup of tea and the other involved an accidental polka. So, for our next topic, we're diving into family-friendly environments and children's activities. I'm always thinking about how different cultures nurture their little ones, you know? It's like finding a treasure chest of unique playtimes and family traditions. Oh.
A treasure chest, huh? More like a hunt for the least annoying kids' activity. In some places, I'd say. But no, you're right. It's fascinating. Speaking of different approaches, we're pitting Djibouti against Slovakia today. To places that couldn't be more different when it comes to keeping the youngsters entertained. Whoa.
Absolutely. Let's start with Djibouti. When I think of Djibouti, I picture its stunning natural beauty, the Red Sea, Lake Castle. For families, I imagine a lot of outdoor, nature-focused activities. Think swimming, snorkeling with colorful fish, or just enjoying the unique landscapes. It's less about playgrounds and more about the world being their playground.
You're right. The world is their playground, assuming it's not 45 degrees Celsius and they're not melting. I mean, it's an arid climate, right? So, while the natural beauty is undeniable, finding ways to keep kids cool and engaged would be a daily quest. My guess is a lot of activities revolve around water, and probably a lot of stay inside during the hottest part of the day rules. I'm certain that our listeners who've been there would agree with me.
That's a very fair point, Leon. You've definitely got the sharp traveler observation skills going on. But even with the heat, there's a strong community and family focus in Djiboutian culture. Children are often integrated into gatherings, learning through observation and participation. It's a different kind of activity than we might expect, less structured, more organic.
Organic, yes. Like spontaneously finding yourself at a camel race. You won't find many kids' clubs with a dedicated bouncy castle there, that's for sure. It's more about resilience and adapting to the environment. I can just picture a kid learning to identify different desert plants, rather than just endlessly swiping on a tablet. Oops. Though I bet even Djiboutian kids want to swipe on a tablet sometimes.
Whoa, don't get me started on tablets, Leo. But moving to Slovakia, what a contrast. Here we have for distinct seasons, which opens up a whole different world of activities. I imagine parks bursting with color in spring, swimming in summer, maybe apple picking in autumn, and all the snow sports in winter. Ooh. It's a paradise for structured outdoor play.
Oh, absolutely. Slovakia, where the only thing hotter than the summer sun is the competition to get the best sledding spot in winter. You've got the Tatra Mountains for hiking and skiing, castles straight out of a fairy tale, which kids usually love, unless they're like me and just want to know where the gift shop is. Plus, plenty of well-maintained playgrounds, museums with Inter-European focus on public spaces for families.
Yes, and speaking of those majestic castles, I actually read that many Slovakian castles host special events for children, like night tournaments or fairy tale storytelling. Wow, it's not just a beautiful backdrop, it's an immersive historical experience. That's something truly special for families, don't you think?
It sounds charming, doesn't it? Though I bet some kids would prefer a modern arcade. But I see your point. It's a rich cultural experience. When it comes to supporting families, Slovakia, being an EU member, also has robust social programs and a good educational infrastructure. So, it's not just about entertainment, it's about a supportive environment for growth. It's like, they've thought of everything except maybe how to make broccoli taste like pizza. Oops.
You know my feelings about broccoli, but you're right, Leo. The emphasis on education and social support is a huge factor for families considering a long-term stay. From welcoming parks to engaging museums and those supportive programs you mentioned, Slovakia really seems to lean into nurturing kids and strengthening family life. It's almost like a well-oiled machine for family happiness.
A machine with plenty of off switches when it comes to bedtime. But you hit on a key point, it's not just about what there is to do, but how the society supports families. Djibouti, with its strong community ties, offers a different kind of support, perhaps more interpersonal, less institutional. Slovakia, on the other hand, provides that institutional scaffolding.
Exactly. So, for our listeners, if you're picturing sun-drenched, community-focused natural adventures, Djibouti might be calling. But if you prefer structured play, historical immersion, and a comprehensive social safety net across the seasons, then Slovakia is your go-to. It really depends on your family's vibe. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. We love hearing your perspectives.
And don't forget to check out Jet Off AI for more insights into global living. They've got the data that helps us make these wild comparisons, so it's a great resource. For me, a family-friendly environment means one where I can get a decent cup of coffee and the kids are too busy exploring to ask for my phone.
Alright, so moving on from our last chat about delicious street food, I'm still dreaming of that spicy lentil soup. By the way, let's look at something a bit more, shall we say, intricate. We're talking about the OG, tea-friendly atmosphere in Djibouti and Slovakia.
Intricate is one way to put it. I go with chalk and cheese myself. One's a desert, the other's trying to figure out if it's a desert or a garden. Hey, Djibouti, Mira, is a place where you'd probably spend more time looking over your shoulder than at the stunning coastline if you're openly part of the LGBT community.
Wow, is it really that stark, Leo? My heart just did a little triple flip. I mean, every country has its own journey, right? In Djibouti, while specific laws against homosexuality might not be screaming from the rooftops, the societal and religious norms are super conservative. It's less about what's written and more about what's deeply, deeply felt.
Exactly. It's the silent rules that hit hardest. You won't find pride parades there, or even a rainbow flag discreetly tucked away in a cafe window. It's one of those places where out and proud feels more like out and in danger. I'm certain that our listeners living in such environments understand that silent pressure to well.
That's stuff. It makes me wonder about the small glimmers of hope, though. Even in the most traditional places, there are always individuals pushing for understanding, aren't there? It's like finding a tiny, vibrant flower blooming in a rock's crevice. Well, what about Slovakia then? Are they dancing under rainbow confetti, or still figuring out the choreography?
Slovakia's definitely got more confetti, Mira, but sometimes it feels like they're still figuring out which button to press for the confetti cannon. While homosexuality is legal, and they've made some strides with anti-Ceramic laws, full equality is still a trek. Civil partnerships for same-sex couples were recently, shall we say, given a firm no. It's like being invited to the party but told you can't have a piece of the cake. Ouch.
Oops. That's a real bummer, Leo. I always imagined Slovakia's beautiful castles and vibrant cities, and you'd think that kind of rich history would embrace diversity a bit more openly. But hey, at least they're having conversations about it, right? I think that's half the battle. If you're talking, you're not ignoring.
True, talking is a start. But sometimes talking just means they're deciding on which shade of beige to paint the wall when what you need is a rainbow mural. In Bratislava, you'll find more visible LGBT scenes, like a few bars or community events. But step outside the capital, and it's a different story. It's like finding a liberal oasis surrounded by conservative dunes. Do you guys agree with me on that? Our listeners?
I think there's always a spectrum, Leo. Even in countries that struggle, there are always movements, small or big, fighting for change. It's like a slow motion dance, sometimes 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But as long as the music is playing, there's hope for a grand finale. Oh, it's just a reminder that supporting initiatives that champion inclusivity is super important, wherever you are, like checking out our Fight Jet on cultural topics too.
Yes, Jet Off AI, your one-stop shop for cultural enlightenment. But speaking of support, Slovakia does have its pride parades, which, despite occasional opposition, are a huge step compared to places where even mentioning the topic is taboo. It's not perfect, but at least the rainbow flag gets to fly, even if some people are squinting at it.
And that's progress. It's about creating spaces where people feel safe and celebrated. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments when this episode goes up on YouTube. We love hearing diverse perspectives. For me, anywhere that allows people to be authentically themselves, even if it's a slow climb, gets a big ooh from me.
I agree, Mira. Authenticity is key. No one should have to pack away parts of themselves just to exist. While Djibouti has a long, difficult road ahead, Slovakia is definitely on a path, albeit a winding one, towards more acceptance. It's like they've got the map. They just need to agree on the best route without too many detours.
You know, when we talk about hospitality and how different countries embrace visitors, it's like opening a giant, colorful box of surprises. Oh, every culture has its own special way of saying, "Welcome to our home," and sometimes it's with a hug, sometimes with a quiet nod. Today, we're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia, and I'm honestly so curious to see how these two vastly different places compare when it comes to making foreigners feel like they belong.
Colorful box of surprises, Mira. It's more like a mystery novel, where you're trying to figure out if you're the hero or just the comic relief. You walk into a new place, and suddenly you're decoding a secret handshake or trying to understand if that intense stare means welcome, or don't touch my camel. I've had more than my share of those moments, especially in countries with a very different vibe. So, Djibouti and Slovakia. Let's see which one offers the warmer cup of tea, literally.
Speaking of warm cups, in Djibouti, I hear the hospitality often starts with a cup of tea or coffee. And it's not just a drink, it's an invitation to connect. Wow. It's a country where traditional nomadic values still hold strong. So if you're welcomed into someone's home, it's often with incredible generosity. People might go out of their way to share what little they have, especially if you're a guest. It's truly heartwarming, don't you think?
From what I've observed, that cup of tea can sometimes be followed by a very direct, "So why are you here, stranger?" Not in a rude way, but more like cutting to the chase. Djibouti's a crossroads, a place where people are used to seeing folks from all over, but they're also very proud of their own heritage. I imagine you have to earn their trust, but once you do, you're practically family. It's not a culture of endless small talk, which I appreciate. My record for small talk is about 3 minutes before I start questioning my life choices.
Oh, Leo, you and your life choices. But that directness can be refreshing. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me that it's about genuine interaction rather than superficial pleasantries. You know, there's strong clan and family ties mean that community is everything. If you find a connection, it's often deep and lasting. It's a very open-hearted way of living.
Indeed. And it's refreshing not to have to guess. Unlike some places where you smile and wave, and then spend hours wondering if you just agreed to buy a goat. But moving to Slovakia, Mira, I imagine the welcome might be a bit more reserved initially, perhaps not as immediately effusive as you'd find in, say, a nomadic culture.
Liam, Leo. Slovakia is a beautiful country with a rich history, but their hospitality often has a quiet charm, a subtle warmth that might not be as outwardly boisterous as some cultures. You won't typically find people rushing to invite you into their homes on the first meeting, but once you build a rapport, Slovaks are incredibly kind, loyal, and generous. It's less about grand gestures and more about genuine connection action over time.
I can picture it a subtle nod, maybe a slightly raised eyebrow, then a perfectly poured beer as a sign of acceptance. My experience with places like Slovakia is that they're very proud of their traditions and their country's progress, and they appreciate it when foreigners show genuine interest. They might not immediately launch into a monologue about their family tree, but they'll answer your questions thoughtfully. It's a show, don't tell kind of hospitality, which can be disarming if you're used to more performative welcomes.
That's a great way to put it, show, don't tell. And that sense of pride is something I deeply admire. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prefer an immediate, come on in type of welcome or a more gradual, trust-building approach? If you're watching this on YouTube, share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Oh?
Yeah, if you think Mira's right about everything, well, you're probably wrong. But seriously, in Slovakia, knowing a few basic phrases in Slovak can go a long way. While English is spoken in bigger cities, especially by younger generations, making an effort with the local language shows respect and can open doors to more authentic interactions. It's not about being fluent, it's about trying, which can often be met with a surprised but warm smile.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of language, I once tried to order a hot dog in a small Slovak village, and it came out sounding like I was asking for a hot cat. Oops. But they were so patient, and we eventually figured it out, mostly through exaggerated gestures and a lot of laughter. That's the beauty of it. Even when there's a language barrier, kindness often bridges the gap.
I bet you had them rolling in the aisles, Mira. And while Djibouti and S might be used to seeing different faces given their port city status, Slovaks, particularly in smaller towns, might still be quite curious about foreigners. Not in an intrusive way, but with genuine interest. It's a different kind of curiosity than my own. I'm making this into stand-up materiosity, but it's still curiosity.
It sounds like in both countries, it's all about respecting the local customs. In Djibouti, for instance, a more modest dress code is appreciated, especially in rural areas or when visiting religious sites. While in Slovakia, observing social etiquette, like waiting to be invited to someone's home or taking off your shoes, shows respect for their culture. It's like a beautiful dance, don't you think?
A dance where I'm probably stepping on everyone's toes, but at least I'm trying. So whether it's the understated warmth of Slovakia or the generous, direct hospitality of Djibouti, it seems both offer unique, genuine experiences. It's not about which is better, but what kind of connection you're looking for, right? For more deep dives into these fascinating comparisons and to explore further travel insights, you can always check out Jet Off AI. It's a pretty good place for all your where to next conundrums.
You know, Leo, thinking about how we just compared everything from food to families, it's wild how much our lives revolve around a good internet connection now. I mean, I almost had a meltdown yesterday when my coffee machine's smart home app wouldn't connect. Ouch.
A meltdown over coffee. Wow, that's big first world problem right there, Mira. I'm certain that our listeners living in, say, Djibouti might find that amusing. Speaking of which, let's dive into internet infrastructure and digital facilities for Djibouti and Slovakia. It's a tale of two very different digital landscapes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Oh, and I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Because when I picture Djibouti, I imagine a place where the internet connection is perhaps a bit like a camel on a slow stroll. Eh, it's strategically located with those undersea cables, right? But for the average person, it feels like it's still finding its digital legs.
You've got that right, Mira. It's less a camera, more like a dial-up modem trying to load a GIF from 1998th. Whoa! Djibouti Telecom holds the reins there, making it a bit of a monopoly. So, you're looking at slower speeds and higher costs than what most of us are used to. Imagine trying to upload your latest dance video there. Ouch. You'd probably age a decade waiting.
Oh, no. My dance moves are too dynamic for a dial-up connection. That's a serious challenge for anyone wanting to work remotely or, heaven forbid, stream a motivational talk. But I wonder, does this limited access mean they're more creative with local, offline digital solutions? Or does it just make everything a bit tougher?
That's a good question. From what I've observed, limited access definitely means a tougher digital life. They're trying, but when basic broadband is a luxury, it's hard to talk smart cities or digital nomad hubs. It's like trying to win a Formula One race with a bicycle. Oops. Now, if we swing over to Slovakia, it's a completely different story.
Now that's a country that's part of the European Union. So I'm picturing a vibrant digital scene, probably zipping around like a high-speed train. Am I right? They must have competitive internet providers and better speeds, I'm guessing?
You bet. Slovakia's more like that bullet train, even if it's not quite the Hyperloop yet. As an EU member, they've adopted European standards for connectivity. Broadband penetration is pretty good, especially in urban areas like Bratislava and Cassis. You've got multiple internet service providers vying for customers, which usually means better service and more affordable prices. It's a refreshing change from a digital desert, wouldn't you say?
It sounds like a digital oasis. Wow, I can almost hear the collective sigh of relief from anyone trying to stream their favorite series or attend an online meeting there. And with competitive providers, you probably see more innovation too. Like, are there apps for everything? Public Wi-Fi everywhere?
Apps for everything? Probably. Public Wi-Fi? Definitely more prevalent than, well, our Djibouti example. Slovakia is quite digitally savvy. Mobile coverage is robust and the government is pushing for more e-services. It makes daily life much smoother, whether you're paying bills or booking appointments. It's the kind of place where my morning coffee shop has stronger Wi-Fi than some entire country's main internet hubs.
You and your coffee shop Wi-Fi standards, Leo. But that's a good point about e-services. It really changes how people interact with their government and daily tasks. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. I imagine in Slovakia, getting a digital signature is probably a breeze compared to other places where it feels like you need to sacrifice a goat to sign a PDF. Oops.
A goat sacrifice for a PDF. That's one for my stand-up routine. But seriously, the digital infrastructure in Slovakia makes it a much more accessible and efficient place for both locals and visitors. For anyone considering it as a place to live or work, knowing you have reliable and affordable internet is a huge relief. It's not just about entertainment, it's about entertainment. It's about integration into modern society.
That's true. It really highlights how essential good internet has become for everything. From education to business to just staying connected with family. Speaking of staying connected, if you're finding this comparison interesting, remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Oh, it helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into countries around the world.
And don't forget to check out Jet Off AI for more detailed travel and relocation guides. They're the real MVPs behind these insights. It's clear that while Djibouti is working on improving its digital landscape, Slovakia is already enjoying a fairly robust and well-integrated internet infrastructure. It just goes to show how much a country's development can hinge on its digital backbone.
Speaking of things that excite me, let's dive into shopping opportunities and the whole price-performance balance. I mean, who doesn't love a good treasure hunt, right? Especially when you're in a new country. Oh.
I knew you'd jump at the chance to talk about shopping, Mira. You and your treasure hunts. For me, a treasure hunt usually ends with me finding a decent coffee shop and a quiet corner to observe. But for our listeners today, we're pitting Djibouti against Slovakia in the retail arena. It's quite the contrast, wouldn't you say?
Whoa, quite the contrast is an understatement, Leo. It's like comparing a cozy, local spice stall to a gleaming, multi-story shopping mall. Let's start with Djibouti, our first country. I imagine it's less about the sprawling fashion boutiques and more about vibrant, bustling markets, wouldn't you say?
Indeed, Mira. In Djibouti, the shopping experience is primarily centered around traditional markets, like the massive central market. You're not going to find many high street brands there. It's more about local goods, spices, fabrics, and essentials. Think functional, not necessarily flashy. Imported goods are present, of course, but often come with a higher priced ad due to import duties and logistical costs.
Ah, that makes sense. For someone like me, who gets thrills by colorful textiles and unique local crafts, Djibouti sounds like an absolute dream for a specific kind of shopping. Well, I can just picture myself haggling over a beautiful scarf, probably making a total fool of myself but having a blast. I bet the price performance for those authentic local items is fantastic.
You'd probably turn the haggling into a full-blown theatrical performance, Mira, and walk away with a friendship bracelet instead of the scarf. But yes, for unique, locally sourced items and essentials, the value in Djiboutian markets can be quite good. However, if you're looking for Western-style electronics or imported groceries, be prepared for prices that might make your wallet wince. Ouch. It's a classic case of supply and demand in a port-driven economy.
Oops, my wallet just gave a little whimper at the thought. But that's part of the adventure, right? Knowing what to expect. Now moving from the vibrant energy of Djibouti's markets, let's hop over to Slovakia. I bet that's a whole different ballgame of retail therapy. Oh.
Whole different ballgame is right, Mira. Slovakia, being an EU member in Central Europe, offers a much more diverse and modern shopping landscape. You'll find everything from large shopping malls with international brands to charming local boutiques and city centers. It's far more aligned with what Western shoppers might expect.
Wow. So, if I'm craving a specific brand of sneakers or just want to wander through a department store, Slovakia would totally deliver. And what about the price-performance balance there? Is it like Euro prices, but with a friendly smell attached?
Precisely. Compared to Western European giants like France or Germany, Slovakia often offers more competitive prices for similar quality goods. So, you might find that trendy dress or a new gadget for a slightly better deal, especially in local chains. For the discerning shopper, that's a win. Of course, if you're looking for high-end luxury, you'll pay high-end luxury prices anywhere. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who have shopped in both countries think about this.
Oh, yes. I'm certain that our listeners living in Slovakia would agree that you can snag some great deals, especially on local brands or during sales periods. I mean, who can resist a good sale sign? Not me? It sounds like Slovakia offers that comfortable mix of familiarity and good value.
Absolutely. And you'll find plenty of local crafts and souvenirs in Slovakia too, from intricate lace to beautiful folk art. These often provide excellent price performance, offering authentic cultural pieces without breaking the bank. It's a nice blend of modern convenience and traditional charm. Unlike, say, trying to find a decent espresso machine in the middle of a Djibouti and spice market.
Oh, Leo, you really do have a one-track mind. But you're right, the contrast is stark. So for our listeners out there, if you're into unique, authentic local finds and don't mind a bit of a hunt, Djibouti's markets are for you. But if you're after a more conventional, diverse retail experience with generally good value for money, then Slovakia is probably your go-to.
Exactly. It boils down to what kind of retail adventure you're seeking. One is an exercise in cultural immersion and resourcefulness. The other is more about convenience and broader choice. Both have their charm, but only one is likely to have a decent coffee machine ready for purchase.
Whoa, you and your coffee. Anyway, whether you're bartering for a beautiful souvenir in Djibouti or browsing the latest fashions in Bratislava, the shopping experience always tells a story about a country's economy and culture. Don't forget to like this video and tell us in the comments which country's shopping scene you prefer to explore. And remember to check out Nightlife for more travel insights. Oh, festivals and cultural events. I love a good celebration. In Djibouti, you get this amazing mashup of East African charm and deep-rooted Islamic traditions. It's like a cultural stew simmering with flavor. They have their Independence Day, which is a big deal with parades, and then all the major Islamic holidays, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, which are always about family feasts and a real sense of community.
Feasting under desert stars, huh? That's quite the imagery. Sounds like a commitment to culinary enjoyment. In Slovakia, you get a completely different, but it's very Central European with strong Catholic traditions, but they also have these incredible, almost ancient, folkloric festivals, like the Vajchodina Folklore Festivals. Like the Vajchodina Folklore Festival, it's one of the oldest and biggest. You might see someone playing a fujar. That's a giant shepherd's flute, you know?
A fujar pole vault. Only you. Speaking of instruments, Djibouti's music scene is just so soulful. Think the OUD, the tabla drums. It's like the soundtrack to a journey across vast landscapes, especially their Balbo music, which is this really poetic, traditional style. Oh, you won't find huge international pop concerts, but the local performances are raw and authentic. I'm certain our listeners who love to explore unique sounds would totally agree with me.
Raw and authentic is a nice way to put less amplified Mira. But I get it. Slovakia, on the other hand, while it honors its folk roots, and that Fujara is even UNESCO recognized, so respect there also leans into classical music in a big way. They produce composers whose names I butcher trying to pronounce, but who were, I'm told, quite brilliant. Plus, in cities like Bratislava, you get modern jazz festivals and international rock acts. It's like they can't quite decide if they want to be a museum or a mosh pit.
Well, why choose? You can be both, Leo. It's all about variety. In Djibouti, beyond the major holidays, there are also smaller, local celebrations tied to specific communities. Biafar, the Somali each with their own dances and oral storytelling traditions. It's not about big stages, it's about intimate gatherings on keeping history alive through performance. I think it's beautiful. Oh.
Intimate gatherings in Djibouti's dry heat. I hope they have good air conditioning or at least a strong breeze. Whoa, Slovakia's festivals are generally a bit more, shall we say, structured. Beyond Vajchodina, they have these amazing traditional crafts fairs, wine festivals in the autumn. Because, you know, Europeans love their wine and all sorts of medieval reenactments. You could go from watching a blacksmith forge a sword to a just me.
A journey through time and sound. I love that. And speaking of journeys, if you're ever planning one to find out more about these incredible cultural calendars, you know Jajafeya has all the details. You can find specific dates for these unique events there. It's like having a personal cultural concierge.
Exactly. Jeddah is basically saving you from accidentally showing up for a folk dance competition when you expected a techno rave. On the concert front, in Djibouti, you're looking at local artists, often performing in smaller venues, cafes, or community centers. It's less about stadium tours and more about connecting with the rhythm of the place. They have strong Arab and East African influences, so expect rich, melodic tunes.
Oh, That sounds so captivating. I can just imagine the storytelling through music. Wow. Slovakia, though, because it's so centrally located, gets a lot of international acts passing through its bigger cities. So, if you're into global pop stars, rock legends, or even niche electronic artists, Sylvie and Cassis will have something for you. It's a blend of old world charm and modern beats. I'm curious about what our listeners prefer. Do you like the intimate local vibe or the big name concert experience? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
That's a good question, Mira. I bet there's a strong divide. Personally, I appreciate a good local performance, but sometimes you just need to scream along to a classic rock anthem, you know. It's a cleansing experience. And while Djibouti's festivals might not be UNESCO listed like Slovakia's Fuja, the sheer communal spirit of their celebrations is something to behold. It's a deep cultural immersion that money can't buy.
You're right, Leo. The spirit of celebration is universal, even if the costumes and music change. And honestly, for a true feel of a country's heart, those local festivities are key. I'm certain that our listeners living in either country can attest to the magic of their local gatherings. Wow, these insights couldn't have been possible without Jet a Phase deep dive into cultural trends, helping us map out this festival fever.
True that, Mira. And for more in-depth analysis on each country's unique cultural calendar and how it unites people in celebration, you can always check out Jet Off AI. Seriously, the rabbit hole of global celebrations is deeper than you think.
It is. And whether it's the rhythm of Djibouti or the folk dances of Slovakia, both countries prove that culture is alive and kicking, and always ready for a party. So, get out there and explore, everyone. And if you like this comparison, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Oh, alright, let's talk about something that can either open up a whole new world, or just make you point awkwardly as in need of learning the local language. Oh, we're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia today. I once tried to order spicy chicken in a country, and I'm pretty sure I ended up with chicken that sings opera. My language learning attempts usually end in a dance routine. Oops. How do you think our countries stack up?
Mira, an opera singing chicken actually sounds more interesting than half the stand-up routines I've heard. Wow, my attempts usually end with me just pointing and nodding, which works surprisingly well for most things, except perhaps Stack's forms. So, Djibouti. Let's look at that. Their official languages are Arabic and French. For anyone already familiar with those, it's a bit of a head start, right? You're not starting from bonjour. Where's the coffee?
Absolutely. If you've got some French in your pocket like I do from my high school days, when I thought I'd become a Parisian fashionosa, then you're already halfway there. But then there's Somali and Afar, which are widely spoken. Whoa, that's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? It feels like those are languages you learn through pure, unadulterated immersion, like falling into a conversation pit and just hoping you surface speaking fluently. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me that immersion is key.
Pure immersion indeed. Pure panic followed by gesturing wildly until someone takes pity. For a traveler, picking up basic French or Arabic for Djibouti makes sense, but imagine trying to form a Afar language school. You'd probably have better luck finding a talking camel. Oh, it's less about structured classes and more about just, well, existing. But speaking of structured, Mira, what's the linguistic landscape like in Slovakia? I bet they have more than one school.
Well, not a talking camel, but definitely plenty of well-structured schools, Leo. Slovakia, on the other hand, is all about Slovak. It's a Slovak language, which means if you've dabbled in Czech or Polish, you might catch a few familiar sounds. Oh, but for the rest of us, It's a completely new adventure. They have formal language schools, university courses, and private tutors playground where you actually get a textbook and everything. Wow.
Oh, that's so I think that we can conquer that. A textbook. Wow. That sounds almost organized for my taste. I prefer my learning to be a surprise, usually delivered by a confused local after I've butchered their language. A Slovak. Being Slovak, being Slavic, comes with its own set of charming grammatical complexities cases declensions the works. Oh, it's not just learning words, it's that what was your potato mother moment. If you think this is wrong, then roll in a bit once and either once. And accidentally told a waiter his mother waiter is a potato.
Oh, Leo, your potato mother story never gets old. But really, whether you're grappling with the nuances of Somali and Djibouti, or the cases of Slovak, it all boils down to connecting with people. In both countries, the more you immerse yourself, the more you learn, and the more fun you have. It's not just about the grammar, it's about the jokes, the local sayings, the feeling of truly understanding a culture's heart. Oh, don't forget to like this episode if you've ever had a breakthrough moment with a new language.
Yeah, and sometimes that breakthrough is just figuring out how to successfully order a double espresso without offending anyone. Language is both a beautiful bridge and a frustrating barrier, often in the same 5-minute conversation. For anyone planning to visit or move, understanding these linguistic landscapes is vital. And for those seeking guidance on navigating such moves, Jedalfeya offers fantastic, detailed information on various countries. Ooh, it's about finding the right tools for your linguistic adventure.
Courage, a smile, and maybe a few dance moves, Leo. Because honestly, nothing breaks a language barrier faster than a shared laugh. Wow. So, whether you're attempting his call Warren in Djibouti or AHOJ in Slovakia, embrace the journey, make mistakes, and keep learning. All right, Leo, let's talk about something incredibly important for so many of our listeners: safety and comfort for women travelers. Today, we're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia, a country that immediately makes me think of beautiful coastlines and a fascinating cultural mix. Oh, for women traveling there, it's a completely different vibe compared to, say, a European destination.
Different vibe is one way to put it, Mira. I imagine it's less about avoiding a rogue mime on the street and more about understanding a profoundly different set of cultural norms. I'm curious, does comfort in Djibouti involve a specific dress code, or is it more of a go-with-the-flow situation? Hoping for the best.
Oh, you hit on it right away, Leo. Dress code is definitely a key part of it. In Djibouti, modesty in dress is generally appreciated, especially outside of very tourist-focused areas. Women often find that covering shoulders and knees helps them blend in and feel more respected. It's not necessarily a strict law, but it's a cultural sign of courtesy. I actually think it's a lovely way to immerse yourself, don't you think? It's like a cultural hug.
A cultural hug that might involve a lot of fabric in the heat. I can just picture you, Mira, trying to do your spontaneous dance moves in a full-length abaya. But seriously, my observations of the region suggest that while overt harassment is less common due to strong community ties and respect for guests, the lack of a universal language like English can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. That's where comfort can take a hit, even if safety is generally good.
Language can definitely be a barrier, but Djibouti ANS are often incredibly hospitable, especially once they see you're making an effort, even with just a few French or Arabic phrases. You might get a lot of enthusiastic gestures, or even an invitation for some sweet tea. I'm certain that our listeners who've experienced this warmth would agree with me. It's like their way of saying, "Welcome to our home."
I suppose a cup of tea is better than being lost and confused. Now, shifting gears quite dramatically, let's look at Slovakia. You move from the Reed Sea to Central Europe and suddenly the dress code means you probably won't be questioned for wearing whatever you feel comfortable in. Oh. So, what's the general atmosphere for women travelers in Bratislava or the Tatro Mountains?
Slovakia feels much more familiar to many Western travelers, and generally, it's considered very safe. Cities like Bratislava have excellent public transport and well-lit streets. You see women walking alone at night, which speaks volumes. Of course, like any city, common sense precautions are always a good idea. But for solo female travelers, it's a pretty relaxed environment, wouldn't you say, Leah?
Relaxed, yes, but not entirely without its quirks. While the chances of major incidents are low, my finely tuned observational skills tell me that in crowded tourist areas of Bratislava or Cassis, you might still encounter the occasional pickpocket. Whoa. It's less about feeling physically unsafe and more about the slight annoyance of having your wallet go on a surprise adventure without you. It's like life's little way of saying, "Pay attention, buddy."
That's exactly, Leo. Not almost a universal urban traveler rule, isn't it? But in terms of overall comfort and feeling respected, Slovakia's legal frameworks, which align with EU standards, offer strong protections against discrimination. Though, there are also active women's rights groups, which contribute to a general sense of inclusivity. I'm actually curious about what our listeners who've lived or traveled there, how effective they think about how affected these protections are in day-to-day life.
Inclusivity indeed. Though I'm pretty sure you'd still manage to accidentally insult someone's grandmother with a perfectly innocent joke. Slovakia generally provides a straightforward experience for women travelers. No unexpected camel rides or impromptu dance-offs in markets, I imagine. My point is, you know what you're getting mostly.
You never know with me. Leo, a spontaneous dance-off is never out of the question. But you're right. The predictability in Slovakia is certainly a comfort for many. Both countries offer unique experiences for women, just with very different cultural landscapes to navigate. It really boils down to what kind of adventure you're seeking, doesn't it?
Indeed. So, whether you're trying to figure out which scarf to wear in Djibouti, or just making sure your phone isn't pickpocketed while you admire a castle in Slovakia, the experience is shaped by your preparedness. And perhaps your ability to laugh off the occasional travel hiccup.
You know, it's fascinating how different countries set up their rules. Almost like everyone has their own version of a board game. Today's game board is legal system, individual rights and freedoms, and our players are Djibouti and Slovakia. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you ever feel like you're playing a game when you're dealing with bureaucracy?
A game where the rulebook keeps changing, Mira. And sometimes they're not even sure who's holding the dice. Speaking of rulebooks, let's talk about Djibouti, shall we? It's a blend of French civil law and Islamic tradition, which sounds like a very interesting, perhaps even confusing legal cocktail. I can just picture someone trying to order a Sharia-flavored croissant in court.
Ooh, a Sharia-flavored croissant. I love that. Maybe it comes with extragula sprinkles. But seriously, with Djibouti, while their constitution does have articles about individual liberties, The practical application can be a bit more of an adventure, shall we say? Like trying to find your way through a maze after dark.
An adventure, indeed. One where the exit signs might be a little faded or perhaps pointing in multiple directions. Whoa! Freedom of expression there, for example, often faces hurdles. It's like having a microphone, but someone keeps accidentally unplugging it mid-sentence. I'm certain that our listeners living in Djibouti would agree with me, or perhaps they're too busy trying to find a working outlet.
Oops! You're making it sound like everyone's whispering their opinions. But wait, I want to add something there. It's not all doom and gloom. There are efforts, even small ones, to engage with civil society, although it's definitely a tightrope walk for many organizations. It's like a really cautious dance party. And then we swing over to Slovakia, which is a completely different kind of dance.
From a cautious dance party to, well, perhaps a highly organized folk dance, complete with very specific steps and official costumes. Wow, Slovakia, being part of the European Union, means its legal system is largely aligned with EU standards. You've got your constitutional protections for everything from free speech to assembly, and generally, they mean what they say. It's not a suggestion, it's a rule. And if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments section on YouTube. We actually love hearing from you guys.
That's the beauty of it. That EU framework gives a certain rock-solid foundation, doesn't it? Like knowing your dance floor isn't going to suddenly vanish beneath you. Individual rights and freedoms in Slovakia are usually respected, and the media generally operates without heavy government interference. No, unplugged microphone situations there. Ooh, it's refreshing to see that level of transparency. Although, I bet they have their own brand of bureaucratic paperwork that could still make you tear your hair out.
Absolutely, Mira. Every country loves its paperwork. It's a universal truth. Whoa. Slovakia might have clear laws, but trying to navigate a forum in Slovak can be its own special kind of torture for a non-TANF speaker. Ouch. It's like trying to understand a very precise legal recipe written in a language you don't speak. You know it's important, but you might end up with something completely different than intended.
Ooh, that's a great point, Leo. Language barriers can definitely make understanding your rights feel like a cryptic puzzle. But for Slovakia, being under the umbrella of the European Court of Human Rights offers an extra layer of protection, which is quite significant. It's like having a very stern but ultimately fair referee watching the whole game.
Indeed. While Djibouti sometimes struggles with the practical application of its laws, particularly concerning media freedom and political opposition, it's a different narrative in Slovakia. You'll find a more robust civil society and a generally free political landscape. It's the difference between a whisper network and a public forum.
If you're someone who likes their legal systems to be, let's say, a bit more predictable and aligned with broader democratic principles, Slovakia might feel like a more familiar dance. Oh, whereas Djibouti offers a unique blend, but with perhaps a few more spontaneous and sometimes challenging moves thrown in.
It all boils down to your comfort level with improvisation, I suppose. In Djibouti, you might need to be a bit more agile in understanding your rights and how they're applied. Wow. In Slovakia, it's more about understanding the specific, intricate steps of an established waltz. Both have their complexities, but one has a much clearer instruction manual, even if it's in a language you don't fully grasp. And if you want to understand those nuances, check out Jet.
Exactly. It's about finding where you feel most secure, whether it's navigating complex, culturally rich legal waters or swimming in the clearer, but still bureaucratic, seas of EU standards. Both places offer very distinct experiences. Oh, no. This is a topic I can really get behind: spa, healthy living, and relaxation opportunities. I mean, who doesn't love a good pamper session? We're diving into Djibouti and Slovakia today. And for Djibouti, my brain immediately goes to those incredible natural landscapes. I'm picturing something very raw, very connected to the earth.
Mira, when I think of Djibouti's climate, relaxing isn't the first word that springs to mind unless your idea of relaxation involves sweating profusely. But you're right. It's all about natural immersion. Lake Hassel, for instance, the lowest point in Africa, super saline. They say the therapeutic muds there are fantastic. Though, I'm imagining a very DIY spa experience. You know, just you, some very salty mud, and probably a few curious goats.
Always an adventure. I could totally turn that into a mud facial / dance party. Come on, little goat, feel the natural minerals. But honestly, the Red Sea for diving and snorkeling, the silence of the desert, that's a whole different kind of mental spa, isn't it? I'm certain that our listeners who've explored Djibouti would agree that its unique quietness is incredibly restorative.
Absolutely. That silent, vast desert is a spiritual detox, even if it's not the cucumber on ice kind of spa. You're basically getting a full soul cleanse without the fluffy robe. But let's swing over to Slovakia. I'm picturing something a bit more, shall we say, structured when it comes to relaxation.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. Slovakia, for me, just screams cozy warmth and deep relaxation. I imagine them just bubbling with thermal springs and ancient healing traditions. Oh, do they just have spas everywhere, like even next to the grocery store?
Not quite next to the grocery store, Mira, but almost. Slovakia is practically built on thermal waters. It's a land of Spadowns Pistini, Trenchons Keteplis, Bardijos Kakupele. You go there and it's like people just inherently know how to relax. Wow. They've been doing balneotherapy for centuries, basically healing with mineral water and mud. It's not just a dip, it's a whole science.
Well, Djibouti gives you that raw, earthy, salty mud experience with potential goat interactions. Slovakia is offering the full-on, centuries-old, we know what we're doing kind of deep soak. That's quite the contrast. I could see myself trying both, although I'd probably need a proper bath after the Lake Castle mud, just to get rid of the salt crust. Oops.
Oh, yeah, you'd likely feel like a human salt lick after Djibouti, Mira. But speaking of feeling refreshed, Slovakia's mountain regions like the High Tatras also offer a fantastic healthy living component. Clean air hiking, skiing in winter, it's active relaxation. You burn off the hearty Slovak food, then reward yourself with another dip in the thermal waters. It's a viciously healthy cycle.
Wow. A viciously healthy cycle. I love that. And you know, a balanced lifestyle isn't just about spas. It's about connecting with nature. So for Slovakia, hiking in those beautiful mountains, that's like a natural therapy session. And for Djibouti, it's those incredible marine environments and the sheer vastness of the desert. Different vibes, but both so powerful. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Which kind of spa would you rather choose? Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
That's a good point, Mira. It depends on whether you prefer to bake yourself in a dry, salty desert silence or luxuriate in a warm, mineral-rich bath. Both sound like excellent ways to escape the daily grind, just with wildly different temperatures. And remember, friends, whether you're planning an adventurous desert trip or a serene spa retreat, you can find all the travel details and insights on Jet Off AI.
Yes, Jet Off Air has got your back for all those unique wellness journeys. It's fascinating how different countries offer such distinct paths to rejuvenation. Djibouti is definitely for the adventurer who finds peace in extreme landscapes, while Slovakia is for someone who appreciates the comforting embrace of tradition and thermal luxury. What a diverse world we live in. So, diving into our next big topic, opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. Now, this one feels like it's going to be a fascinating journey, especially when we look at countries as distinct as Djibouti and Slovakia. Oh,
Whoa, Mira, you're right. Just the names themselves sound like they're from different spiritual dimensions, don't they? One makes me think of ancient desert prayers, the other of bells ringing through misty European valleys.
you've already painted a picture, Leo. I'm just picturing a Djibouti and desert nomad sharing a prayer rug with a Slovakian monk who's just finished polishing a medieval stained glass window.
And I bet the monk would be saying, "Did you remember to bring your coffee, brother?" No, just kidding. But seriously, if we start with Djibouti, it's pretty clear that Islam is the dominant faith there. Mosques are everywhere. They're the heart of the community.
Absolutely. 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 Islam is the state religion. The constitution actually grants religious freedom, which is always a positive sign. Oh, you'll find smaller Christian communities, mostly expats and some locals, mainly concentrated in Djibouti city. Imagine finding a little church nestled amongst the desert sands, but tiny oasis of a different faith.
An oasis, indeed. But let's be real, Mira. It's not like you're going to see a megature on every corner. The freedom to practice your religion is there, but I've heard that proselytizing non-Muslims can be a bit tricky. So, for our listeners who are thinking of moving there too, let's say, start a new spiritual movement, maybe check the local rules first.
Start a new spiritual movement only, Leo. But that's a fair point. It's about respecting the local context. Speaking of context, Slovakia presents a very different spiritual tapestry. It's deeply rooted in Christianity, overwhelmingly Roman Catholic. You'll see beautiful churches and cathedrals that have stood for centuries.
Oh, yeah. Those European churches always get me. They're not just places of worship, they're living museums of history and art. I once saw a gargoyle on a Slovakian church that looked like it was silently judging my life choices. But Catholicism isn't the only show in town. You've got Lutherans, Reformed, Eastern Orthodox, Greek Catholics, and even Jewish communities. It's quite the mix. Wouldn't you say?
And it's wonderful to see such a blend. Slovakia's constitution guarantees religious freedom, and the state even recognizes several religious societies, which can mean some financial support or privileges. I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in Slovakia think about this. Do you feel that the government's recognition helps foster a more harmonious multi-faith environment? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. Ooh.
Good point, Mira. It's a different kind of support system than what you might find in Djibouti, where the community itself is the primary pillar. You've got strong, established religious communities in Slovakia, particularly the Catholic ones. But I've also noticed a growing number of people who identify as non-religious there. So whether you're looking for a traditional service or just a quiet place to reflect, Slovakia seems to have options.
Definitely. And for those seeking something more personal, maybe a secular spiritual path, both countries would offer different opportunities. In Djibouti, perhaps finding solace in the vast, silent desert landscapes. Imagine meditating under a sky full of stars, far from any city lights. Wow.
Or getting lost in a labyrinth of ancient cobblestone streets in Slovakia, pondering the meaning of life after a few too many pierogi. I'm certain that our listeners interested in historical spiritual sites would find Slovakia fascinating with its old monasteries and pilgrimage routes. It's not just about active worship. It's not just about active worship. It's not just about soaking in centuries of devotion.
You've totally captured that essence, Leo. Both countries, despite their differences, offer unique avenues for spiritual exploration. Whether it's the communal prayer of a Djibouti mosque or the quiet contemplation within a Slovakian cathedral, it's all about finding what resonates with your soul. And for more details on navigating these cultural nuances, remember to check out Jettle articles.
And remember, folks, respecting local customs and traditions is paramount, no matter where your spiritual journey takes you. You don't want to accidentally interrupt a prayer service because you thought it was a spontaneous dance party. Oops. Though, with you around, Mira, that's always a risk.
Only if the beat drops, Leo. But I agree, respect is key. So, whether you're drawn to the warm, communal spirit of Djibouti's faith or the historical depth of Slovakia's religious heritage, both countries provide fertile ground for spiritual growth. Well, this particular topic, social equality, respect for minorities and diversity, always makes me think of a beautifully chaotic mosaic, you know. Ooh, it's like everyone's a different colored tile, and when you put them together, it makes something stunning. Today, we're looking at Djibouti and Slovakia, and I'm just so curious how their mosaics come together.
I'm mosaic. Mira? I'd say sometimes it's less a mosaic and more a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half are upside down. Especially when you talk about social equality. Djibouti, for example, a small country with two main ethnic groups, the Is and the Afar, who historically haven't always sent each other holiday cards. It's a delicate balance trying to get those pieces to fit without anyone getting a splinter.
But finding common ground, celebrating what makes each group unique. Djibouti also has smaller communities like Arabs, Europeans, and Ethiopians, all contributing to its vibrant culture. I bet their street food is an amazing blend of all those influences. Well, I'm certain that our listeners living there would agree with me. Wouldn't you guys?
Street food is one way to unify a nation, I'll give you that. Nothing quite brings people together like questioning what's actually in that mystery meat skewer. But seriously, while Djibouti strives for unity, the undercurrents of clan identity are always present. It's like everyone knows the main goal, but sometimes the smaller allegiances whisper a little louder. It's an ongoing negotiation, not a finished painting.
Well, since we mentioned that, let's hop over to Slovakia. I imagine it's a completely different kind of mosaic there. Being in the heart of Europe. Oh, they have a significant Hungarian minority, and of course the Roma community, which is present across many European countries. I'm always amazed by how different cultures find ways to coexist and learn from each other.
You're right, it's a different kind of challenge. Slovakia, as an EU member, has all the NDCR chain of laws and frameworks in place, but that doesn't magically erase centuries of prejudice. The Roma community, particularly, faces significant social exclusion and discrimination, which is an open secret across Central Europe. It's like having a beautiful law on paper, but in practice, some people still read it upside down.
Ouch. But surely there are efforts to bridge those gaps, to celebrate their unique contributions, like cultural festivals or programs that promote understanding. I always believe that when people truly see each other's humanity, the walls start to come down. Well, speaking of seeing things, if you like what you're hearing and watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more insights. It really helps us keep these conversations going.
Always the optimist, Mira. While there are certainly initiatives, the reality is often more complex. For instance, the Hungarian minority in Slovakia often advocates for linguistic and cultural rights, sometimes leading to political tensions. It's a classic case of identity politics, where sometimes the celebration of difference can also become a point of contention. It's not always a group hug, you know?
Oh, I get it. It's about finding that delicate balance between acknowledging distinct identities and fostering a shared national one. It's like baking a cake where you have different flavored layers, but they all need to hold together. Ooh, I'm actually curious about what our Jeddah AI community thinks about this balancing act. How do you guys manage diversity in your own countries?
A cake analogy for social equality, Mira. Only you, Only you. But to your point, both countries have their own versions of this. Djibouti has to manage its internal ethnic dynamics while also dealing with a diverse migrant population due to its strategic location. Slovakia, on the other hand, deals with historical minority issues within the context of European integration. It's less about a grand celebration and more about constant, sometimes tedious, negotiation.
Well, I still think there's always something to celebrate when different cultures come together. Even if it's just finding a new recipe or a new dance step. Imagine a Djibouti and a Slovakian sharing a meal, teaching each other phrases. That's true diversity right there.
Or an Afar and Anissa trying to teach each other a new dance. Could be entertaining. The point is, social equality and diversity are ongoing projects, not destinations. You don't just arrive at full equality, you continuously work at it, sometimes with 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And occasionally, a dance break, if you're Mira.
Exactly. It's a journey, and every step counts. Our current topic, we compare taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants into countries Djibouti and Slovakia. Well, from tax structures to pension plans and social safety nets, we're bringing the systems to life. Discover each country's unique approach to supporting immigrant residents. It's like trying to find matching socks in a very different laundry basket.
Matching socks in one of these situations. Djibouti's tax system, or lack thereof for certain aspects, is, let's just say, minimalist. It's a free trade zone, so if you're a long-term immigrant looking to set up shop there, you might be thinking, no income tax? But then you realize that minimalist also applies to things like social safety net. Oops.
Oh, Leo, always looking at the half-empty sock drawer. But you're right, Djibouti does have that allure of a free trade zone. For long-term immigrants, especially those involved in business, it can look incredibly appealing. Ooh, I'm certain that our listeners thinking about setting up an enterprise might find that tax word quite charming in Djibouti. But then there's the retirement part.
Yeah, the retirement part where the charm often evaporates faster than water in the Djibouti desert. If you're planning to spend your golden years there, don't expect a state-funded pension to magically appear. Oops. It's more of a save for yourself or have a very large, supportive family kind of deal. For immigrants, this means private savings or international pension plans are your best friends. Otherwise, you might find yourself still working at well. Let's just say you'll be working.
Whoa, working forever. That's one way to keep busy. Speaking of keeping busy, Slovakia's approach to retirement and social rights for long-term immigrants is a whole different ballgame. Wow. As an EU member, it's got a much more established social security system. If you're working there and contributing, you're building up those pension rights. It's like a well-structured financial dance. Ooh.
A financial dance, I'd probably trip over my own feet, or the tax forms trying to do that. Slovakia's system is certainly more robust, offering public health care and various social benefits if you're properly enrolled and contributing. For an immigrant, that means a clearer path to social rights, which can be a huge relief compared to, shall we say, figuring it out as you go. But it also means you'll be paying income tax, VAT, and social contributions.
Absolutely, yo. It's like comparing a spontaneous street performance with a meticulously choreographed ballet. In Slovakia, those contributions mean access to a safety net, things like public health care and some unemployment benefits. Oh. For families, it means a more predictable environment. It's about knowing there's a system in place. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. What they value more, minimal taxes or comprehensive social rights.
That's a good point. Mere a choice between the wild frontier of no taxes but also no safety net versus the organized pay your dues, get your benefits approach. Djibouti's free trade status is a double-edged sword for long-term immigrants. While business might boom without heavy tax burdens, the lack of a social safety net means every personal crisis is, well, personal. No unemployment benefits, no state-funded healthcare for the general populace. It's a gamble, really.
It definitely sounds like a high-stakes game, Leo. Whoa, now, back to Slovakia. For long-term immigrants, the clarity of their tax structure is a huge plus. You know what you're getting into. Progressive income tax, standard VAT, and social security contributions all feed into that system. It's like a well-oiled machine, even if it has a few bureaucratic cogs. And for retirement, those contributions really add up over time, giving you a sense of security.
A well-oiled machine that probably requires a lot of coffee to keep running, especially when filling out the forms. But you're right, the transparency is key. For long-term immigrants in Slovakia, understanding your rights to healthcare, sick pay, and eventually a pension is much clearer than in a less structured economy like Djibouti's. It's less adventure, though. Sometimes planned stability. Though, sometimes stability can feel a bit like watching paint dry.
Exactly. So, whether you're drawn to Djibouti's do-it-yourself visual freedom or Slovakia's, we've got a system for that. Approach. It really comes down to what kind of safety net, or lack thereof, you prefer. Both offer unique experiences for long-term immigrants, but the journey through taxes, retirement, and social rights will be dramatically different. Wow.
Indeed. One is a sprint, the other a marathon, and both require different shoes. Or perhaps no shoes, depending on the local customs. It's all about navigating, or perhaps just blindly stumbling through the paperwork.
Alright, Leo. This is our grand finale for now, and we're diving into the rate of meeting specific interests. Ooh, I'm already buzzing thinking about all the unique passions out there. What a perfect way to cap things off, don't you think?
Specific interests, you say? My most specific interest right now is figuring out how to get another cup of coffee without leaving this chair. But yes, for those less caffeine obsessed, I'm sure Djibouti and Slovakia have some surprises. It's not always about the big, flashy stuff, right? Sometimes it's the tiny, peculiar corners that grab you.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of tiny and peculiar, let's kick off with Djibouti. Now, for the marine enthusiasts among us, this place is like a secret treasure chest. Imagine diving into the Red Sea, seeing those incredible coral reefs, maybe even swimming with whale sharks. Wow, it's not just a hobby, it's a full-blown underwater ballet.
An underwater ballet where you might accidentally become part of the food chain, depending on the size of the shark you're dancing with. Ouch! But I get it, for divers, Djibouti's Gulf of Tadjouré is legendary. Though, I'm certain the logistical interest for some might be simply getting to the dive site. It's not like you just pop down to the local dive shop. It's more of an expedition, which for some is part of the interest, I suppose.
Ooh, true. And it's not just the ocean. Djibouti also has Lake Castle, which is one of the saltiest lakes in the world. Talk about a specific interest: geological tourism meets extreme photography. You could practically float all day without trying. For our listeners who love unique landscapes, that's a whole new level of discovery.
Whoa, floating all day sounds like my kind of activity, actually. Though I'd probably just float right into a nap. Now, shifting gears from salty lakes, let's talk Slovakia. You will find whale sharks there, but you will find a different kind of natural wonder. Oh, any thoughts, Mira?
Oh, I was just about to ask that. Slovakia. Well, I think if the height art was right, For anyone into hiking, climbing, or even just breathtaking mountain views, it's absolutely stunning. And what about all the castles? I can just imagine a historical reenactment group having a field day there.
A field day, or maybe a full-blown medieval reenactment, complete with questionable sword fighting. Slovakia definitely caters to the outdoor adventure types with its mountains and extensive caving systems. And for the history buffs, you've got over 100 castles and chateaux. My specific interest, though, would be finding the one with the least haunted gift shop. Seriously, you can spend weeks just castle hopping.
Oh, I love that. And what about local crafts? I'm curious if our listeners have ever tried their hand at traditional Slovakian pottery or lace making. It's so intricate. I think for those who love hands-on creative work, Slovakia really offers some deep roots. Plus, the folk music festivals, pure joy in dancing. Wow.
I can picture you at a folk festival, Mira, probably inventing a new dance move with the pottery wheel. But yes, for traditional crafts and even unique culinary interests like obscure regional cheeses or wines, Slovakia has organized routes and workshops. It's far more structured for niche hobbies. Djibouti, on the other hand, might offer the interest of simply finding a local craftsman amidst the daily hustle. It's a different kind of treasure hunt.
That's a great point. So it's less about formal clubs in Djibouti and more about exploring organically. For example, bird watching near Lake Abbey or observing the Afar nomadic culture. It's an immersion experience, almost like your whole trip becomes the interest. Ooh, whereas in Slovakia, you might join a specific mushroom foraging club in the autumn.
Yep. One is structured exploration, the other is more like, let's see what happens today. Hopefully it's not a hallucination from the desert heat. So for the very specific niche, like stamp collecting related to former Soviet bloc countries, Slovakia probably has a dedicated society. For someone whose specific interest is collecting unusuals and samples, Djibouti might be your ultimate playground.
I'm certain our listeners living in either country would agree with us about unique offerings. It really boils down to what kind of specific interest you have and how you prefer to pursue it, doesn't it? Do you want a ready-made club, or do you want to forge your own path?
Exactly. If your specific interest is avoiding crowds while still experiencing something extraordinary, Djibouti offers raw, untamed nature. If your interest is hiking a well-marked trail to a medieval ruin, then grabbing a craft beer, Slovakia has you covered. Both totally valid ways to satisfy that inner explorer.
Oh, it's all about finding your perfect fit. We've talked about a lot today. Leah.
We certainly have, Mira. It's been quite the journey comparing these two.
It truly has. This episode marks our farewell for now. After sharing all this info, we're signing off until our next comparison podcast. Please follow the Jetaf AI YouTube channel for more episodes like this. Hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more, so until then, take care and see you in the next one. Warmest wishes from us.